This is all I say to VALORANT casters. Don't go to Riot and expect job security, expect agency, or even recognition from what you're doing in North America. Because you're not going to get it, and they don't give a shit about you. They don't care. They just don't. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of Valoranting. It's the 15th of March. That's right. It's your warning bell. You're halfway through the third month of the year. What the fuck are you doing with yourself? Huh?
16th for me. 16th for me.
That's right. Yeah, Van's obviously coming to us live from Vietnam. So thanks for going to the effort for joining us from literally across the world, bro. How's it been going?
Bro, happy to be here, man. Super excited. Super happy to be back in the motherland. I'm gonna not try to speak too loudly because the wifey's just sleeping right next to me, so it's nice to be back with her. But also, no matter where I go, I just can't escape that I'm gonna be fucking pixelated on this show.
Yeah, I mean, this time you have actually a legitimate reason though, so. You know,
true.
There is that. What's going on, MitchMan? What's been going on your week? Obviously, some truncated scheduling for VCT EMEA. So hopefully, you've been able to save your energy a little bit for when you guys get real busy. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had B streams and everything going over this week, so it was a pretty active week of Valorant. Like we had a bunch of games, obviously making up for lost time a little bit earlier on. So yeah, it's been busy. It's been fun.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, nice to see teams like Acend and stuff get to play G2. I think that was probably a couple of weeks ago. That was our match of the week, and now this week we saw G2 involved in another quote unquote match of the week against Guild. So EMEA pumping out some good games. We also got more news as well on when we should expect to see some of the teams that are affected by the conflict going on in Europe right now. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. First of all, though, we're going to talk about VCT NA on today's show. Version 1 end up, in a fantastic position here. Very, very impressive stuff from that squad. They're 5-0 at the top of their table. We'll also talk about VCT EMEA, right? Obviously, Fnatic's looking quite good. We're going to talk about season 3 Masters champions? Masters 3 champions? There we go. That's the one. Yeah. New name, obviously, for our Gambit roster. We'll talk as well about the news regarding Zeek as well, who's had to sort of step back for a while, hopefully not too long there, is obviously a big part of Acend. And we'll cover some miscellaneous news at the bottom of this show. We can talk about the Sean Gares stuff. I don't know if it was like programmed in, but it's probably just going to involve me getting really angry and you two not being able to say anything as per usual. So yeah, that'll be fun. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about VCT NA because week 5 is done. So the group stages are over. This sort of quote unquote league format where, teams sort of got to play in a bit of a round robin setup is concluded. And yeah, some pretty insane matches this week. Obviously, we got Cloud9 versus the Guard, which was our tabletoppers over in Group A going at it. There can only be one 5-0 team in either of these groups. So that was a fantastic game, as you can see there. NRG clobbered Rise Nation, who really didn't seem to be able to get going. And Sentinels got pretty badly exposed there by version 1 in that Group B match. I think people may be hoping to see Sentinels to shrug off some of their malaise of recently, but we sort of talked about them the last couple of weeks, and we had Anders on the show sort of saying, I'm not so sure about this guy. Something ain't quite right. Hunter Thieves obviously get their, participation award, their charity win. I'm not sure what we're going to call it there, over Evil Geniuses. Hunter Thieves still finished -26, though, in map differential at 1 and 4. So Optic take on Knights. That's an interesting matchup, of course, as Knights were a team that really impressed us early on. And then XSET take down Luminosity 2-0, and they settle themselves comfortably at 3 and 2 with a +13 map differential. So that's your week 5 results here. I want to talk about these results, right? And who better to talk to about this than to bring back on the show the Don of XSET? That's right. Let's meet Syyko once more. Thanks for coming on the show, bro. Great to have you back.
Thanks for having me, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Chilling.
Van's chilling. He's like washed out with this like 1 key light at like 2 a.m. in Vietnam. Like, yeah.
I have it Valorant like pointed up in the air too. It's like it's still so bright, but we're making it through.
Oh,
It's got the roosters going in the background, all the good Vietnam noise.
To be fair, the roosters probably didn't stop, right? The roosters just keep going through the night in Vietnam, I've noticed.
Yeah, actually, once it's going to be like 3 a.m., there's going to be the roosters. And then at 4 a.m., I think it's the neighborhood dog as well. It's like a German shepherd that's watching after a house too. So it's we got some early mornings going on.
Yeah, you're in Saigon, by the way. So it's not like you're in a rural part of Vietnam.
The Saigon hustle, baby.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. I remember trying to cross the street in Saigon and just the flood of scooters and stuff, man. It was actually
Raise
insane.
your hand and just walk.
Yeah. Everyone just goes around you, man. All right. Let's get into this. So in the past, we've like kind of gone through the matches, you've fallen asleep, and then we've talked about the match of the week, and everyone's gotten excited and more awake. We're gonna do it the other way around this time. So let's talk about our match of the week. First and foremost, Cloud9 versus the Guard. All right. I mean, these two teams looking pretty strong. I mean, first of all, Syyko, has your experience been going up against going up against these kind of guys in your group, right? Definitely feels like it made this quite a grueling group to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both these teams are looking really strong, playing really solid fundamental Valorant. Obviously these are the only two teams we lost to in our group, so I see them as both extremely strong teams. Cloud9 has been strong since last year. I think they ended the year looking like one of, if not the best team in the region. And then, as we know, Guard coming out of nowhere this year, really showing us what sticking to fundamentals, building a solid team, and the power of rainbows and friendship can do for a team as far as just propelling them through a season. So really liking what I'm seeing from the Guard. They're constantly grouped up. They're constantly trading out. They're constantly playing smart and playing their numbers. And I really like that from them. It's allowed them to really take down some of these juggernauts who just go for more individual stylistic plays and are really falling short up against these guys. So it was really cool to see Cloud9 really match up against the Guard and give Guard a good test. Cloud9 came up on top, but Guard was still able to squeak out a map on them. And it was some pretty awesome Valorant to watch.
Just to ask you a quick question about that, though, about how the Guard came out of nowhere. Because for us, at least as casters, fans, or people who would be unaware about the Guard, would be blindsided. Like, yes, we have no idea where this team comes from, and they're actually amazing. But, in your shoes, Don, you guys have been, like, scrimming in the Tier 1 scene, scrimming, like, up-and-coming teams that are, edging that Tier 1 space as well, and the Guard should be one of them. So did they blindside you going into the playoffs or even into the VCT qualifiers? Or did you already have an idea of how strong of an opponent these guys were going to be?
I think they took us by surprise, not for a match, but just earlier on in the year. We didn't really have to play them until later on, but it was really cool to kind of see them come out of nowhere. I mean, just as a team, I don't think we really expected them to come up. I mean, the former iteration of this roster with P-Salm, as we call him, just wasn't looking as strong. But I mean, individually, like these guys as players are all fantastic players. I mean, say a player, what he's done in Overwatch. Jonah P was someone that we had our eyes on in previous roster changes. We trialed for a bit. I know his aim is phenomenal. His decision making is phenomenal. Valen, really good up and coming IGL that I personally had my eyes on for a very long time as well. So to see these guys come together and mesh well and find this Trent guy like hiding under a table somewhere has been really cool to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think there's been a discussion that Trent might have been one of the more impactful pickups of the offseason in North American Valorant. I think people were saying that, and Xander. All right,
Xander,
so
definitely.
What I want to do here is I take a close look at some of these maps, right? So obviously, Bind first map in this series, it's a Guard pick, by the way. So we've got a couple of clips here. Just want to kind of talk about it, and Vans, I mean, you can almost sort of discuss them as they happen here. But this is a good example of Trent kind of getting the Guard out of trouble. The Guard win the first 4 rounds here. This being the fourth one.
I feel like just in general, with all the clips we're going to see through, and the way that I saw the Guard play C9 on Bind was that C9, I know people are saying like, they're not that great on Bind, or C9 tells themselves that they're not really that great on Bind, and they don't really like it. But overall, I still think that C9 had a pretty good defender sided, despite them, losing so many rounds in a sense that them not picking an Astra anymore, right? And you're playing in this new meta, and you're pulling out a breach. So you're going to have to do a lot of agent compositions with Cloud9 overall as to how you're going to stop your opponents and how you're going to be able to oppress your opponents with no gravity wells, no Nova pulses. So you put Leaf on a breach, which is going to be good for defensive lines with fault lines. That he's been using it very well, actually. He's been fault lining a lot of people on the defensive half. On the attacker side, it goes back to the standard of like the Korean style of fault lighting into showers and then try to have Zeppa take control as a raise into that areas. So you can try to get these splits into the A site. So the theory of how that comp was going to work, was going to play worked out very well. But when it came down to laying it against the Guard, it was a little bit more different because the Guard has that slow style, the slow default style, pushing and prodding your opponents. And by the time C9 uses utility to try to push them back initially, you still have so much utility left for the Guard going into the executes that there's not much left when it comes down to the retakes right after. You can see right here, look at the amount of utility that's been used on the defender side just to try to stop a plant. when it comes to fighting back for map control or at least for pulse plants, then it's just going to be the guard overpowering you with the amount of aim that you have from Trent and from Jonah P.
It's like a lot of mileage came out of the Sage pick here from Jonah P, right? Not only obviously he's fragging out pretty nicely, but this is a good example of obviously that's that pretty classic Sage wall over on the A side that had to be busted open. And we can run in straight into our next clip as well after this, because it looks like the Sage is able to buy so much time here sort of for the guard in general.
Yeah.
And when they're trying to go for these executes, get pretty safe plants. I think our next clip also has like a good example of like her being used in showers. So ton of value from that pick here.
Yeah, definitely. And Don, you could maybe add as well onto looking at this play style too. But when we look at the chaos of what C9 puts as their utility, and the reason why I say the default's good is also because the guard are pretty good at staying calm, cool, and collected despite all of the shit that's going around in the stalling that C9 tries to bring out, and they're still able to flank across.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cloud9's mentality seems to be utility first, right? They're the kind of people that, they're never going to have utility left when they're taking fights. They're always going to dump it on you. But Guard on the other end they're always going to be grouped up. They're always going to be playing together, and they're going to give you that team-oriented look if you allow yourself to be isolated. So no matter how much utility you have, the Guard are going to play it calm, cool, and collected, like you said. Take it slow, wait the utility out, and attack you together and trade out with their numbers. So really good matchup for them on this map. Bind also a map where Cloud9 don't seem to have the best, lock on roles as far as making the agents work. I mean, anytime you put Leaf on, something other than Jet or Duelist, it doesn't seem to work as well. I know Zeppa seems to be pretty good on the Raze, but when you're putting Leaf on a Viper, or in this case putting Leaf on the Breach, I feel like you're really inhibiting his potential there, and it seems to make Bind a weak map for Cloud9.
So you think they have to put him on a Jet as well, like kind of like the XSET Crowd sells Jet style?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to necessarily, copy XSET, but we welcome you to do so if you think that's what's gonna work for you guys, Mr. Autumn and James IRL. But I just hate seeing Leaf, bogged down going 12 and 15 on a Breach when he could be popping off on a Duelist. So maybe something to tinker with over on their end.
Makes sense.
Yeah, feels like a lot of value being put into that utility available to Cloud9 over just sort of maybe they're trying I don't know, maybe they're trying to push a certain philosophy about how they sort of want to be playing, but I don't know how well it matches up to some of these individuals. This is actually a pretty cool example of so this is a plant in a 5v5 here. Brimming ult gets used, no one caught by that one there, but the guard now have to go for sort of a retake here. I think Mitch gets it down here, so there was like a whole minute left in the round, Vans.
Well, look at this. Look at the amount of utility that's available right now for all of Cloud9, where everything has been used, and they have like basically Mitch and Vanity that could play pulse plants. And they are playing a position where they could play pulse plants, but look at the amount of utility that's available for the guard. Two slowers that are still available. I think the wall was there and that just got used. They got Seekers that just came out. And while all this disruption of the amount of utility that Trent uses on this retake from the A side, well, you just saw that beautiful flank from Jonah P just from behind to be able to get those 3 kills. Technically, I feel that maybe he should have died at the third encounter, but just to be able to surprise 2 players on time, just in a right moment because of those Seekers and the pressure that they brought in from the spawn side, just shows how coordinated the guard were on that timing to be able to backstab C9 on that round.
It didn't feel like a slow round from Cloud9 though. They plant the spike with 1 minute and 6 left in the round. So how are they getting caught by this kind of flank? It looks like they even had a player facing that direction, right? Didn't they have Zeta
in the beginning, and one of those Seekers literally just hit him. so then it just got a little bit more difficult to focus on watching that flank right after, when you're counting your timing on, okay, there should be somebody flanking at that point because Jonah P is playing towards Hookah, and then by the time you hear the Seekers coming close towards you, you got to turn around and try to shoot that, and then Jonah P gets the timing himself. So there's just a little bit of luck that comes in, I guess, at that point as well. But the plan was already there for that amount of pressure to put in that had to be put in. From the guard over C9.
I think it was like round 19. I think this was a pretty pivotal round where C9 have a chance to bring things back, and they actually start with like a player advantage in this round. B main gets covered up by this Sage wall here, and Cloud9, they just kind of try and force through it, Vans.
Yeah, and when you're trying to fight through this, I mean, it works out. They had the Hunter's Fury start out on the attack, and Valor was holding towards that bike. I think he gets this one kill over here when they try to get in, but I think it's just trying to get the positioning right after as two players let up towards the front. Everybody just dies quite instantly, and then the trades, as Don was mentioning before, continues to be very good and very strong for the guard. Like the fundamentals are there just to be able to avoid most of that utility, but if not, you always could count on a second player or a third player to come in to at least finish off the kill. That's why their cast is actually so high in the first season so far in the 5 weeks that were played.
It feels like Cloud9 struggled with explosiveness on Bind, right? I think having the breach utility is quite nice, but we kind of talked about Leaf being switched up and then them having to contend with like a lot of these slowing elements, Sage walls when they're on the attacking side or like slow orbs and such. So it feels like they end up walking into like pretty comfortable setups by the guard and that they have plenty of time. Like here, even this, like trying to make a play with the breach. Okay, slow orb wall. Now you have to go through Octagon. Like, fuck me.
There was even a round where, like, C9, Don, I don't know if you remember watching it, but there was, like, 3 guys from C9 or even 4 guys. Yeah, it was 4 guys from C9 pushing down towards Long B, and Vanity had to play a delay on A side on defense with snake bites, right? And as they're trying to push down and aggress, because of the utility that you have from Jonah P and Side Player, they avoid an orbital strike. They throw the slow orbs onto the ground. Now they can't even get pressured by C9 on the C9 can't even pressure on the flank because they're just getting slowed, and the timing's off because now they have to pull back on a full rotation through spawn because they're about to get pressured onto Vanity into the A site from showers and short A's. So I just find that the drilling that you have and even on the fly adaptation that you have from the guard is very, very good, at least looking at this map.
Yeah, the cohesion from the guard, the hive mind that they seem to have, the utility combinations they seem to always be pumping out on the fly, just super spectacular. Really, I think goes to credit for MCE for coaching these guys as well as Valen for leading them. Like they just look like a well-oiled machine at all times. They always have an answer, and it's not an individual answer; it's an answer as a team. Whether that's being stuffed, whether that's being executed on and stalling to get the other players over from the other side of the map. They're always aware of what's going on. They have an answer, and they're working to achieve a goal together rather than allowing the individuals to go for plays like some of these teams do. And it really just shows. Like you see the amount of trades that come in from these guys, the amount of cohesion you see from them as they're taking bomb sites, as they're defending them. It's just really spectacular.
And they've got so many time buy mechanics there as well with that Sage in that round that the pressure, I guess, of, you know, those fast exploding executes isn't really present, or at least it doesn't feel like it is. And even when they have to play retake, they look really well drilled. So that's the first map out there, of course. And the guard is a pretty comfortable win.
They're doing really good with the Sage. I mean, this isn't the only map they pulled it out on. I've seen them pull it out on Ascent as well. And just doing a really good job of using that Sage utility to stall and create enough delay to stack the other side of the map and be able to rotate over when the pressure comes in.
So let's talk about Ascent then, because that's the second map up in this series. Obviously, that's the Cloud9 pick here. So we expect them to be feeling pretty confident. I was pretty shocked to see the Omen picked up here by Vanity, sort of straight off the bat. Obviously, KO here for Zeppa, no huge surprise. Did that surprise you guys at all, or is this part and parcel of the Vanity experience?
I mean, people would probably meme saying that Vanity is like, oh yeah, he's been a one-trick Astra or whatever for most of his career. But even Vanity had some very good plays as Omen when when he started even in Valorant. So it's not a new character for him. It's not an agent that he's unfamiliar with. I mean, if you're even looking at the way that Vanity plays against the guard or the way that he sets up the smokes, there's still a couple of one ways that are still used very well for this team that works out. And I think I don't know if we had the clips for one of them, but there's like an execution that you have from the guard into this B site, and Vanity's holding literally at this part towards market, and he flashes into sidewalk, but also smokes right at the sidewalk. So it kind of looks weird where you're not smoking B main, but you're smoking the walkway instead, so that people could try to get blinded, or so he could try to blind his opponents running through the smoke and get paranoid, and then Mitch, who still gets paranoid at that point as well, still plays at close range to catch him off guard and not be so paranoid by the flash and get a couple of kills. So I still find that the utility from Vanity on this agent is quite good.
final
Yeah,
moments.
Vanity's
here
an
was-
Omen gamer for sure. I mean, he had to play it in the past. He's a very flexible guy in general. I mean, these guys are the team that pull out Brim every once in a while. Even before Brim got buffed. So I expected these guys to be one of the better teams to adapt to this new meta change and be able to kind of plug and play controllers on the fly without really taking away from their core strategy. Whereas Guard, I think a lot of their defensive setups, especially, seem to be more trap based and centered around the Astra utility. So I think they've been struggling a little bit more with that. I think that plays into why they still are playing Astra on Ascent rather than experimenting with the new meta stuff. But it looks good from Cloud9. They're a very dynamic team. They're able to shuffle things around. They have flexibility, agent and role wise, just across the board. And Vanity going big here. He's not just a one trick judge abusing, non-fragging IGL. He's proven time and time again that he has the ability at times to step up and really frag out for his team.
Does Astra look sort of markedly worse right now, or especially on maps like Ascent? Like, can you guys sort of see how she's been impacted by the patch changes?
I don't think she's necessarily unusable. I think that she's in a very similar spot to Omen and Brimstone right now, and it's really just going to come down to play style and what you want to accomplish as a team. I think Omen and Brim can offer a little bit more now on certain maps, but I think it's going to be a toss-up. I think we'll see an interesting mix of things going into playoffs based on how teams want to approach this meta shift.
Yeah, I think the important thing to consider as well from the Astra nerf is the fact that you're losing 1 star as Astra, but also if you're actually using one of the other abilities, such as the Nova Pulse or the Gravity Well, their cooldown's 45 seconds, right? So you need to be way more, I guess, detailed and minute to know when to use these utilities to make sure that you kind of like don't waste them. So those type of like it opens windows of opportunities for people who are trying to sell fakes, especially on a map like Ascent. So let's say, for example, you're running towards this B main area as a fake. Then usually, what do you see? 2 stars that are placed towards that B main side, right? So you have a smoke and then you have a gravity well. So if you're gonna pop, both of those right away, you won't be able to use your gravity well onto the A side either. So depending on and understanding where your killjoy is going to be playing, your opponent's killjoy is going to be playing, rather, where usually you had a combination of the killjoy and the all around the map Astra utility that you use, then you could actually pull these rotations a lot better for a team that understands these. And these, for example, right here, are these ones ways that I was talking about that helps to spot you, spot and cross feet over into sight. So yeah, I think that she has she's been nerfed pretty well, maybe too much, but she's still going to be very useful in some maps. You just have to be very detailed of when to use it.
That round there as well that we just got to see was kind of the reason why this first half went so well for Cloud9, right? It was they actually had to win a thrifty. I think Guard win their first gun round and they just started to get rolling, get shut down there. It's pretty nasty. Let's talk about Leaf on this map, in contrast to the previous one, because our next clip shows you what happens when Leaf gets to play Jet and gets a bit of freedom to work. Obviously, Cloud9 kind of unleashing him now to make some plays happen, guys.
Yeah. In the end, when you're looking at how this round kind of panned out and this freedom that we're talking about too, and even Sean and DDK were talking about it. I like the post round. They were saying how that's what happens when C9 gives so much freedom onto Leaf, but there's also the fact that within that round in itself, the guard also gave a lot of freedom to Leaf, right? Leaf was walking towards B main, and all the utility from Killjoy to find the information was alarm bot on middle, and then a turret up on A side, and then 2 nanostorms into B main. So it's very easy for somebody like Leaf that doesn't hear the alarm bot that's close, he doesn't hear the turret, and he could actually just go for a body peek. If he actually sees an opponent, he could, or one, just win the fucking fight, or two, just dash away if he's gonna be in a position where he doesn't have the crosshair placement for the first shot duel. So it's more in that sense that I find that you're able to find a lot more freedom because of a Jet character in itself to be able to get those high risk, high reward type of plays.
Yeah, Ascent is a Jet playground map. I've always said it. And when you give someone like this the freedom to just kind of frag out, so to speak, on what is probably one of his, if not his most, well played agent, you're going to get good results, right? And I think that you see the contrast here of trying to go for a more team-oriented decision and say, hey, we want this utility, but we may sacrifice some fragging power for it, versus putting him on the jet and saying, hey, here is the fragging power, let's see it. I think that maybe his flexibility onto Raze may be inhibiting that on the bind, but Ascent, they got Zeppa on the flashes and Leaf on the jet, and it works extremely well for them, as you guys see.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks as well is it's a problem for them on Fracture, which is why they're just keeping Fracture out of the map pool, because maybe they don't have the flexibility to have a Raze in the mix, and maybe even alongside a jet. Okay, so 9-3 that first half, right? And I think that the Guard getting their economy broken on 2 separate occasions there really threw them off kilter. This doesn't help at all. This pistol round here, spoilers, goes pretty fucking badly for the Guard. Mitch is ratting in the corner here, and there's not a whole lot that the Guard can do about it. And it's at this point we realize, okay, hold on, Cloud9 they're back in control after a pretty underwhelming bind. And you could argue maybe they just don't really have a good layout for that kind of map, and it was the Guard's pick. In fairness, looks like they're back on their bullshit here. Speaking of which, Vanity has a judge in this round, so perfect.
Exactly. Vanity with a judge, and Leaf even trying to push out there on Catwalk to even catch Sire Player to get the jet diff in the end. So when when we are looking at this team that has been looking pretty good on overall in the season, but then realizing after the first map that, oh shit, like C9 are actually a tough team to fight, and we got to turn it up a little bit more. I think at this point you just focus into the next map anyways, because of the 9-3 losing pistol with Mitch getting a 4K on you, and you're falling behind on the economy the whole half because you're pretty much forced to buy in that second round, and then you're just playing catch up the whole time. Eventually, it catches up to you instead, and then C9 will just take that map.
Can I ask quickly? I just noticed that the lockdown was used in this round. The Guard had lockdown. They're on a low buy. I think it's fairly predictable that that's going to be pulled through. And you've got a comp here with a KO who can counter that. Obviously, you've got Shock Darts as well on Zeta, and there wasn't even an attempt from C9 to do that. In EMEA, that is just bog standard. If they KO especially now, you're gonna move to that pretty much every round. I'm just wondering, was this one of the rounds where it didn't happen? Would that be the case in NA as well? If you guys shifted towards KO counters for Killjoy pretty consistently, or did Killjoy still feel pretty free to kind of pop down those lockies?
We're seeing a lot of,
depending on the matches though.
Yeah. I think it's just situational. Some teams are put more of a focus on it than others. I know, we're a team, for example, that has tons of lineups for the Killjoy ult, no matter where you put it. Some teams put less of a focus on that and more of a focus on kind of getting out of the way and setting up for the retake if they're not in position to initially take care of that ult. So I think it's very situational and team to team and how they want to approach it as a team, right? Because a lot of times you may have the utility to kind of destroy that lockdown, but a lot of teams are also expecting you to have that utility and to use it. So as you're getting in position to throw that molly or throw that shock darts, you could have the attacking team just running you down as you're getting set up for that. So it can end badly either way. So sometimes playing the retake is just the more careful setup for that. And especially, Cloud9 having the lead here, it makes sense for them to kind of play it safe and not necessarily, gamble with that. They know they have the weapons advantage. They know they have the round advantage, and they're just taking it nice and slow and playing the retake.
Also, Vanity has a judge, so just let him go in the back of garage with a judge, and he'll just fucking take him down. So it's all good. It's all good. And I think maybe you keep that knife as well for the fact that whenever they're actually moving in with that lockdown, then the KO 0 point is going to help to nullify them, so that Vanity exactly in the back of the site can do the damage that he wants.
Yeah, we kind of seen that a lot, right? Where because the KO was in spawn, and I think I've seen a bunch of EMEA teams that will instinctively, that lockdown comes into play, your KO is moving to try and get an angle to lob over the nade. But we've seen that adaptation then where you actually just chuck it, wait till the last 3 seconds, throw it in towards B main, and you're like, all right, there's no one on site. You're not on site. That's all good. We'll reset it.
Yeah. And again, I think it really depends on the playstyle, yeah.
On the lockdown, actually, just you said, Syyko, that we had some teams will anticipate it. Really fucking cool on Icebox. We saw Killjoy on attack put the lockdown right up against pipes on Icebox, but down below. So they had the KO set up. It came down, but it went on top of pipes. lockdown still comes into play. I think it detained 2 players. That was this
Yeah.
week as well. So it was really fun to see we're already getting to that point where teams are thinking 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of each other.
Oh,
Yeah, it's nice. I'm seeing that more and more, especially in scrims. People throw the Killjoy lockdown just, like you said, just slightly to the left or right or below, and it just throws that lineup off just enough that they either have to adjust it or they may not even realize that they have to adjust it and they just miss outright. So definitely some interesting outplays happening with that now as the layers start to add, and more
Mhm.
people get used to this style of play and how to adapt to it.
I mean, pretty stark contrast, I think, to Cloud9's first map. It's a 13-4 victory for them. But even more interestingly, I think, was what we saw go down on Haven. These are your 2 top teams in this group. First of all, very quickly, I do want to discuss like Cloud9 foregoing this over here and picking up the breach, where the guard actually have both the Sky and the Sova here. Both teams obviously going now towards Omen as well. What are your thoughts on these 2 comps, like the breach getting swapped in and getting rid of an initiator, or rather
Yeah.
the Sova?
I'll let you talk about it first, Don, since you're the big brain with the coaches, but I'll have something to add as well.
Sure, I think this is an interesting one. It's a conversation I've had with my Sova many times. The meta seems to be trending towards more and more teams dropping their Sova on Haven and running the double flasher. Seems to help on defense with flood protocols. You're able to flood into the site much easier. And then on attack, obviously gives you that extra little edge to play a bit faster rather than playing slow with the info. But
yeah,
I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. Some teams running against us while we're running Sova, and I'm kind of like, what the hell are you doing? They just can't make it work. But some teams like Cloud9, they really have it down, and they're able to kind of punish these teams that are running Sova and playing a little too slowly and not adapting properly for what Cloud9 is ready to throw with all their flashes. So
yeah,
it's interesting. I don't know how it's gonna trend down the line if more and more teams are going to be running this double flasher and dropping the Sova, but something I'm definitely keeping an eye on.
yeah. The other double flasher comp that I really like on this map too is version 1. The other team that I think is going to make it deep into the Masters run. No offense here, Don, but I mean they're playing a breach, but they're also playing a KO instead of a Sky, right? And Zelsis
Right.
being that KO they have a very, very strong protocol of how to be explosive with this agent composition on Haven. Which then again, looking at C9, even if it's only a Sky, they still have a very strong explosive protocol to be able to execute into the sites. You'll see a bunch of utility being used by C9. They overtake C sites on splits that are very, very fast. They do a very good job on the A site too, and even the pistol round. Actually, what I really like from the pistol round that we didn't get to see is that they actually played, I think, both Zeppa and Leaf with frenzies inside the B site after they plant, so that they could actually just melt people down. Use your duelist to just melt people down close range into the fights, and if they die, then you have 2-3 more players in the line of defense because they haven't gotten any they didn't lose any duels anywhere else around the map. So I thought that was pretty cool in that sense. But I guess if you want to talk even about the guard of their double duelist, or sorry, the double initiator by having a Sova, I mean, come on, it's still Trent no matter what, right? Like, even if they didn't have the best results in this map against C9, overall they were still 13-0 before going into this matchup. And I think Sean Gares and I think it was Sideshow that was doing the analyst desk too for this matchup, where they brought up a great point. Whereas Valen's playing an Omen here, right? He's not playing the Astra, where he's usually very strong, as we know him for, to be able to be running those defaults, being able to anchor into his site, playing his stars on the fly, and he was actually underwhelming on this map. And I think overall, when you're facing off against an explosive double flasher composition like C9, and you don't have the gravity wells, the Nova pulses to support the Killjoy utility, then you're basically being overrun a lot here on your defender side, which is why we saw, to me at least, such a one-sided affair for C9 on the attack.
Yeah, I was really surprised that this map went the way it is. This map in particular, just given how dominant guard had been on Haven. But I think it does play into that, that meta shift. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of guards' defensive setups are very trap oriented, and the Astra plays a big part in those. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that Valen getting pushed off of the Astra and onto something less comfortable with less stall and stopping power is sort of affecting these guys' ability to, like you said, stall and delay
And
the
trap, yeah.
yeah. The Cloud9 with these double flashes, they're just running these guys down, and it doesn't seem like they have a whole lot of answers to really deal with this.
Wait.
The map was kind of over before the guard could figure out how to adjust properly.
And that's why, to go back to it, that you literally saying that they love to trap. Speaking about the guard, it's also the reason why I love watching C9, because they're also that team that were able to do a lot of trap plays with the gravity wells, with the Astra, with the utility that you hear. Let's say, for example, on Split, even when they're playing a Killjoy and you're hearing utility and you're doing these trap plays. So what do you do instead when you don't have an Astra to do the traps? You're starting to bring out a breach, which is why I think that C9 started bringing out a breach on Bind, so that they could actually do these trap plays, which didn't work out on the first map, but works a lot better here on this third map on Haven.
I mean, Cloud9 up until now, they've been using the chamber pretty liberally on Bind, right? That seems to have been tossed out the window.
Well, and that's the thing. I think because you have to put so much more value onto your breach to be able to replace the Astra, to be able to set those trap plays, then who's going to be able to play that breach? Be Leaf at this point. Well, if Leaf is going to play breach, then somebody has to play Viper. Who's a Viper player? It's going to be Vanity. Well, if Vanity is going to be playing Viper, who's going to be your second controller? I'm not going to put Zeppa on a fucking controller. I'm going to have to put Mitch. And that's why you have to also commend Mitch on how flexible he is as a player to be able to play all these roles that is needed from him, so that it could fit into the protocol that what C9 is trying to do with these trap play style without Nastro this time.
This one gets wrapped up pretty quickly, guys, after. It's like a 10-2 half, I think.
Yep.
And then Cloud9 win the pistols in one of the most Cloud9 ways possible, I think. getting fucked on by Leaf. Classic, yeah. He has the frenzy, man. He's playing all this utility. So hard to catch. He sees a spike drop there inside garage, and he's like, right, I'm just going to chill.
Yeah, so man. Beautiful from Leaf there. You know, gets in, gets that pick, and gets out. He gives his team that 5v4 man advantage without taking any damage whatsoever. It's a perfect play from him.
The stun
like
as well.
3 more
Zeta,
on top of that. Oh yeah, dude. The combination of this team is sick.
Yeah, and Net knows he's fucked at this point. I don't know what the guard are really talking about, but it is a bit of a I mean, a Leaf drops 30 to be fair over 15 rounds, so can't really argue with that. So I think he has like 285 ADR, so it's pretty fucked.
Yeah, 285 ADR, 504 ACS with a 93% KAST. I mean, just an unreal game from him.
Yeah, man. Against the guard of all teams too, man. So like, man, I gotta say, man, the other region's gotta be careful of C9 right now.
Yeah, and he's doing all of this as well. Like, I think an important stat to look at. He's still getting 4 first kills, only 2 first deaths off of this. Like, he's getting these numbers without baiting. He's still going for all the fights that he normally would. He's just winning them. So it's really spectacular to see this from him.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, you did touch on this though, still that individuality that some of these teams maintain, some of these individuals still able to kind of make these plays. It's almost definitive of, some of these NA rosters. This is the last round here. I think Zeppa opens the round up pretty nicely, but I think Sire player ends up getting put in a clutch scenario. And I mean, motherfucker's got the Guardian. Like, it's all kind of fucked here for the guard at this point.
Hey, he is a Widowmaker, man. It could be doable.
I mean, dude. I mean, you give him a grappling hook and maybe, just fucking maybe. But
this is just the brutality of these 10-2 halves, like Vansilli was saying, and then you lose pistol round, and your back's just against the wall for the rest of the game. You know, you have to force buy. You know, you're going up with Guardians. You know, against people with full armor, Inspectors, full utility. It's just a really hard spot to be in, and these players feel the pressure here.
Yeah, so I went for the 9.
It was almost there. It was almost there.
So close.
Yeah, well, it was close, but I mean, at that point, it's such a huge run back though. Tough one for the guard, and I think this is a pretty definitive display. I think the map pool as well is pretty classic for these two teams, especially when I think Breeze and Fracture got banned out. So you've got you're very much your classic sort of map pool here. I don't know. Obviously, Cloud9 are banning Split and Fracture right now, so.
I was going to say, like, it's literally almost like two teams that are very, very similar, right? Where you're looking at Cloud9 that has a lot of these players that used to be in Chaos. And then you also have MCE that used to be the coach for Chaos. And then so that similarity comes into, like, the mentality of the game of, like, the trap plays, understanding how the game should be played based on the players that you have or the play style that you want. And again, I feel that the playstyles from both the guard and C9 are very similar, which is why you see also a map pool that's very similar too. So I think it only made sense that we actually got to see this map rotation for these two teams. And we were yeah, there were maybe one-sided at least in terms of results, but at least we were blessed with a good series that C9 were able to show that they were the best of this group.
But despite that, yeah, I mean, in this interview is really interesting because I think the question of like who is the best comes up here, and Vanity has a pretty interesting answer to it. So I'll let y'all at home listen to this, and maybe we'll discuss it briefly.
Welcome in Vanity again for the Verizon post-match interview. We spoke at the start of the season, Vanity, and you were saying, oh, I don't really feel like we deserve this title that we've been put on ourselves. It's the best in NA. Do you feel like maybe things have changed since we first spoke, now that you guys are 5-0 and you beat the Guard, the only other undefeated team in your group?
No. I mean, we still haven't won anything, right? Like, we won the group stage, but it's like the same thing in champs, right? Like, we really didn't do much. Like, obviously it's cool. Like, I'm really proud of my team. Like, we've shown a lot of growth, but it's like, I don't think we've done enough to like warrant calling ourselves like the best in NA at this point. But I also don't think really anybody has that title as it currently stands. I mean, I guess you can make arguments, but I think it's hard to like make an actual like opinion on it that has like facts behind it at this point, given like the meta just changed and all that, and like how competitive the region has been in itself. But no, I think it's hard to call like a team the best, and I think it's hard to call us the best until we like prove it more.
Yeah, I mean, Vanity obviously has always been super down to earth kind of guy. I think whenever we sort of talk to him, which is great. But I think that does beg the question, right? This is a pretty definitive result. You guys think this is maybe an unnecessary degree of humility, or Don, do you think this is reasonable? Do you feel like that NA is really in flux right now, and it's very hard to say?
Oh, I think he's right. I honestly love this answer from Vanity. I think he's a really good guy when it comes to this sort of thing, and really being honest about his team and himself. I think there's 4 or 5 teams right now at the top of NA that can all beat each other in a best of 3 on any given day. And given that this is only the group stage, this is just a seeding match versus the Guard. It's hard to say, okay, I'm the best team in NA after winning a seeding match. So I definitely agree with them. But that being said, I also think that Cloud9 is a phenomenal team, and if I were a betting man, I would put them in Iceland. So I think at the end of this playoffs, once they potentially make it to Iceland, it would be time for him to say, okay, look, like we've proven ourselves now. We've made it all the way here, back to the international stage, and won playoffs. So I think once that time comes, I expect him to, step up and really claim that title. But given, like you said, the amount of humility that he has, the humble guy that he is, he may not ever, step up and say that. And that's fine, because, that's what the analysts, that's what the viewers are here to say, as well as the rankings and the results, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the domain of the casual viewer to ask these like very reductive questions that don't really mean a whole lot, but just allow them to pass through things maybe a little bit easier. I think like it's never that simple, and it's frustrating for viewers to run into sometimes these answers, because this is the way that pro players think, right? Because they're so far from done. This is what for seeding, for fuck's sake. At the end of the day. So I am curious though to talk a little bit about some of the other matches that happened in this group. So just as well you're here, Don, let's talk about XSET versus Luminosity, because you guys are also banning Fracture right now, but you guys pick Breeze, which is really cool. I kind of want to talk about comps really quickly, because you guys still have the Astra in here as well. You go no Sentinel on this particular map here. So tell us a little bit about your composition.
Yeah, I mean, well, going into our matchup with Luminosity here, let me do the math here. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 versus 2, 3. So we were 9-3 in map count against Luminosity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-1 in series count. Luminosity is a team that we match up exceptionally well against, no matter what iteration of our roster or their roster we have. It seems to be a match that we go in extremely confident with and take home results that we're happy with. So going into this match, we kind of said, look, like, we're not going to show too much going into playoffs. We're just going to play the game we've been playing all season. Not really show anything new, and we felt really confident in our ability to still take away the 2-0 win without having to go, show anything too extreme. So, the Breeze comp that we've been running with the Astra over the chamber, it gives us a lot of extra stall potential, a lot of flexibility, I guess is the right word, as far as like where we want to go, what we want to do. Rory does a really good job with the Astra, comboing it with Jordan on the Viper. We've had a lot of success all season with this comp. So it was good to see it work against Luminosity in this new meta. I'm not sure it's going to be something we're going to run moving forward, but it was cool to pull it back out one more time.
Now that you're actually here, and we see how you guys have a pretty strong now with the current comp, I want to know what was the thought process from the evolution of the original comp to this one, and where you saw the value of the previous comp versus the value of now, because I'm talking about when Breeze first came out, you were running a Killjoy and a Cypher. This was a long time ago too, right? So I guess the idea there is, at least for me, the way that I see it, is talking about stopping ability and trying to get information when or a map is so wide. But what was your thought process in the original comp to now?
Originally, we kind of looked at the map and said, wow, this map is huge. There's a lot of areas to cover. The double sentinel, or double info sentinel rather, gave us a lot of information and the ability to stack certain sides of the map without really worrying about others. It worked at first just for that cheese factor, but as with any cheese, once people catch on to it and learn how to adjust and abuse the patterns that you're giving them, it doesn't work out as well anymore. So
Gets molded.
yeah, we kind of moved away from that and towards this. We were running the chamber for a bit, but Rory on the Astra, especially once the Breeze map itself updated and that choke point on A main became a little bit smaller to where you could actually suck and smoke it. The ability to pull the Astra out to get that extra stall on A site was huge, especially since teams tend to go A site, 60-70% of the time at least on this map. So it gave us, like you said, an extra stall, extra delay, and the ability for us to kind of spread out and then consolidate with the time given to us from our stall utility.
Let's move across here and talk a little bit about Split, because that's, pretty competitive. I think that second half was really quite a slugfest, a lot of back and forth for you guys when you were on the attacking side. Tell us a little bit about how it sort of seemed through your eyes, where LG was sort of making it maybe harder for you at some point.
Yeah, I think this was a map that, running our old comp, we really felt a little bit more the effect of the nerfs, particularly on the Astra and the Viper. It's just something that we're going to have to take back and prepare a little bit better for playoffs going into it. But like I said, this was a series where we didn't really feel like we had to bring out anything new to win. We were still able to scrape out the win with our old composition on this map. Still able to take these guys down. But yeah, there were definitely some rounds where some holes were poked that otherwise wouldn't have been there in the old meta with the pre-nerf agents in Astra and Viper.
You can see here, finished off by Zeek in there, nicely done. And so going forward, your position now in your group, you're 3-2, with a positive map record here. Is this kind of where you sort of imagined you'd end up? I think obviously you going up against a team like Cloud9, I think it was a few weeks ago, right? You pushed into all three maps, really was quite competitive. That Icebox as well was a lot of fun to watch. Are you happy with where you ended up here in this group? Obviously you qualified, I think, especially because of sort of 100 Thieves and EG situation. But, looking back on the groups now really quickly, how are you overall feeling about that?
I feel good about the way that this first part of the stage, played out. In the past, we've been a team that comes in really hot in the early challenger stage and then kind of slows down towards the playoffs. So this time around, I put a big focus on just kind of being consistent and steady throughout the main event stage and really heating up for the playoffs. So that's something we're gearing up for this weekend. With only 2 slots available at Iceland, you got to beat a lot of teams to get there, no matter where you end up in the seeding. So seeding wasn't hugely important for us.
Sure.
If I went back and had to say honestly at the beginning of the season, I honestly expected a 4-1 or a 5-0. Didn't really expect to lose to the Guard. They came out a bit stronger than we expected them to, and then with Cloud9, like you said, went to 3 maps. I think Icebox was 10-13, so really close. Could have gone either way. I think that just as easily as we could have gone 2 and 3 in the group, we could have gone 5-0. Like I said before, there's a lot of teams who are all just really close to each other, can beat each other on a given day. So our focus right now is just coming in hot and being that team that has the hot run in playoffs and takes these teams out.
So that's the fun stuff out of the way. We have to talk about this now. Unfortunately, we have to talk about 100 Thieves versus Evil Geniuses, because it was like these two motherfuckers were entwined in death's dance. Like, this was not one-sided by any stretch of the imagination. love to get you guys' take on this. Obviously, Breeze, Arsenal is playing the Reyna, a pick that we just obviously I know it's such a quintessential pick of his, but is there like a academic basis for this sort of pick, do you guys think, or is it just this team letting off some steam at the end of this, I would say unsuccessful group stage run?
Well, first things first, right? Like both of these teams are 0-4 at this point. I think that there's a lot more that goes into this than just let's get one win, right? I think that at an individual level, a lot of these players, were playing for contracts, playing to not get cut at the end of the day or at the end of the season. So this seems more of like, a staying alive match rather than a, playing for the win, at the team level. So I actually liked seeing the Reyna come out from Asuna. I think it touches back on that point that I made regarding Leaf on Cloud9. Like if you have a player like this who can be phenomenal regardless of whether that agent is in the meta or not, if you can flex that and make that work and get that extra fragging power, then it's something that might behoove the team to do. And I think in this case it definitely did. Asuna is a very strong Reyna. He didn't end up going positive in the match, but he had a lot of impact as an entry. He opened up sites. He let his team trade him out, and I think that's something they needed.
I think that's a really cool point, first of all, just to touch on it, that obviously here in the EMEA, we haven't had the consistency of the league due to the world, but over in NA, you guys have had, right, week in, week out play. It's cool to see that storyline then, that even though you end up with a game that technically maybe doesn't matter, or a team that, hasn't won a map so far is getting shit on, you still have the story there of like, it's not just about staying in the VCT, but on a more I guess direct level, the players lose money. They might lose their contract. The team might drop them. Maybe that team wants a VCT team, not a over here VRL team, or for you guys sitting around for 3 months team. So yeah, I guess a very different context there as well. But that's kind of cool for EMEA as well. I didn't think about that, the impact on the players when they're dropped to a tier 2 level. But I suppose in NA it is much more deadly if you're kicked out of VCT.
Because you guys have VRLs, right? So that's not too bad for EMEA. And as I have to talk about this series too, because we have to talk about it. I mean, I'll talk about it by saying I didn't watch the series because I didn't give a fuck about it. Like they're both they're both 0-4. They're not going to make it anywhere. I mean, we had Hiko go back as a Sova on the first map. I think you're rotating a lot of players into different, like rotating the chamber into the first map too, and then this one going into OT. I mean, the positive aspect about it too is to see that JC Stani and Bang as both the latest addition to this roster looks good, right? I think now they have a potential to work a little bit better going further into their matches, which they're currently playing a Mickey Meow right now for this week, which is great. But I think it's also very important to not only focus on 100 Thieves, but also say how important this series was for EG as well, right? Because now, unfortunately, one team did have to go 0-5, and that's Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, and even though 100 Thieves came away with the 2-0 here, I think that stat line alone is a bit of a misrepresentation of what this match actually was. Like if you look at the score lines, 13-11 on Breeze, and then Haven goes to OT. Both of these maps were won by the skin of their teeth. I wouldn't necessarily call this a victory for 100 Thieves outside of yay, we're barely better than the worst team in VCT right now, and is that necessarily a spot you want to be in? I still think there's a lot of work to do here. I think 100 Thieves still have an issue with Ethan, Asuna, and Bang really filling the same kind of role as a player and having to flex over to different agents to make this roster work. So I'm interested to see how this roster looks going into next season. I can't imagine they keep these 5 players and move forward with them, especially given the history of Nadeshot's willingness to make roster moves with this team.
It's probably the most diplomatic way that could actually have been worded. So congratulations for that. You might consider being a ambassador for the United States at this rate. So with that out of the way, we're going to move on to another match where both teams are mathematically eliminated from playoffs. I think they both. I think Rise were 1-4. NRG was 1-3. Rather, Energy was 0-4. So yeah, both these teams not going to make it through. I still feel like we got a fun series, but I think our concerns about the kind of team that Rise are, especially, are still not being answered. NRG, you can probably argue that, okay, look, this team is still, newer, obviously with some changes here, and how do they sort of bring Hayes into this roster? Like, can they sort of, I mean, they obviously need to go back and do some Mickey Meow themselves, but, let's talk about some teams struggle with getting their duelists sorted for Fracture, right? A lot of teams maybe don't have a good raise. Do you feel like both these teams are okay on this map? Do you feel like they can get away with making that switch over and using the raise?
If I start with it, I feel that there is definitely some pieces that needs to be fixed here with Rise. Either it's unfortunate. I hate being the type of person that says that there's probably going to need to be some roster changes or whatnot, especially now that I have to talk about my Vietnamese homies over at Rise. But they're I do respect them for living as a team and potentially now dying as a team, and trying to find what is going to be the next part and the next solution, right? Because originally, when you're looking at this roster once again, it was potentially going to be 4 players out of the 5 with Baby Bay to be Team FaZe, which that could have looked pretty decent too. I think you had some flash in the pan that gave us an opportunity to see where Rise could be looking pretty decent for this season, and then it just dropped. You never know what team is going to show up, and you never got the team that you expected was going to show up at the same time. And that's exactly to that point. Some of the players are not able to have that flexible agent pool to, like, if there's going to be somebody that's going to have to play a good raise, then what else do we have to sacrifice? What do we switch? And the other players are not too comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think both of these teams are able to make it work simply for the fact that, in contrast to Bind, where the meta is really to have Viper as your main site anchor sentinel, so to speak, kind of playing that hybrid sentinel role. This is a map where you can actually get away with running Chamber as your main sentinel, and that allows you to flex a player like Shanks or a player like Sam, who are, they're not really duelist mains, they're op mains, right? They're jet players because they are oppers, so you can flex them over the Chamber, and that frees up that duelist spot for Tex and Neptune to step in as the raise. I think it works pretty well, but I think that both of these teams are not finding the level of success on Chamber that some other teams are.
Yep.
What was that Yoru flash, man?
Yeah, let's talk about the Yoru on this map.
I loved
I mean,
it,
this was quite fun, right? Some didn't do too badly on it either. I mean, I think Rise looked pretty disheveled by this point, guys. I think that we're just struggling to get over the finish line. But how do we feel about it?
I kind of
fucking
like
love Yoru.
this. I'm actually, you know what? After watching how Sam plays Yoru, I was like, yo, Yoru could actually be pretty viable on as an agent. I mean, he was playing Yoru as aggressive as he was playing a jet with a blade storm. Like, just pulling out utilities, playing on the ground, pulling out the decoy, flashing over it, forcing your opponents to shoot the decoy, then to get blinded by the fucking the flash that he throws, and then he runs out for kills, teleports away. Like, he was doing so many cool things with that kit that maybe caught Rise off guard because it was something that was so unorthodox. I think, Don, Syyko, you were talking about before, like, sometimes you have like these curveballs that you could throw that's going to look really good the first time you play it against, but then it's going to get figured out. But I think at this point, Sam has shown a very good potential of what a good Yuri could look like and what he could potentially look into this type of play style, into like this double duelist or like the Astra nerf meta right now. Or even a double initiator, the double flasher, adding even another flasher with Yoru. That's a lot of flashes in there.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. I think it's the cheese factor. Rise probably didn't scrim a single team in the 3 weeks leading up to this that actually played Yoru, so it's hard to get practice against that, right? But it's one of those things where, if I were playing NRG next week and I had this video to sit down and watch, it'd be pretty easy to sit down and pick apart what Sam's doing. But I think the flash note is interesting. If I were going to run Yoru myself, I'd probably slot him in over the KO as the flasher and still get the jet in there. But I think Sam did a really good job. Like you said, though, Rise seemingly on the ropes already by this point for some reason. Rise, one of those teams that is very much either hot and cold, and this day they were very cold just all day.
Yeah.
So it hurt to see. I love those guys. They're like brothers to me. Probably my favorite team to hang out with outside of my own. So seeing them struggle like this is always hard.
Heartbreaking as fuck, man. Heartbreaking as fuck.
What's the future for this team, you guys think, honestly?
I feel there's got to be a change, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but I feel that there's got to be. I don't want it to happen, but.
Well, I think something to know too is, and people don't necessarily think about this because, coaches tend to be, in the background, not really in the foreground spoken about too much, but there has been a coaching change in Rise. They lost Anger, and they're now being coached by Zach. I believe the team is also in the process of being, moved around to another org. Not really sure the details on that, but I think the coaching change came in as a result of that. They also took a pretty big break over the holiday. So I think between those two things, this team looks very different than the team that we saw in LCQ. I'm not sure if that's a cultural thing or a strategic playbook shift, but something is different. These guys aren't playing the same way with the same vigor that they were at the end of 2021.
All right, let's move on to one of our last games here. As Sentinels move into this week 3-1, so locked for qualifying. Generally looking okay. Maybe like a couple of weaknesses we talked about, like their flexibility. Their fracture looked like a little bit. How you going?
Mm-hmm.
They come into this matchup here, and I'm like, okay, they got V1. Obviously, a tough team to go up against. One of the best in NA right now. They get Haven in this series. They do get to play Haven tomorrow. Sentinels should be looking pretty good here, but their Ascent map was just was awful. I mean, they start by winning the pistol, and then they just don't seem to be able to deal with this aggression from version 1. I don't know what it is. This is why you guys are here, obviously, but it seems like on defense, Sentinels just could not put their finger on the pulse of what V1 were trying to do. It was a really weak performance from this team.
I honestly think that it's just the story of a lot of these teams that kind of just look weak when they're playing version 1 because version 1 is that good right now. Honestly, like when I feel like I've been living under a rock by saying like, oh, Sentinels, they'll lose map 1, but they're playing on Haven. So then how good they are, Sentinels, at trading and stuff like that too. The fundamentals of spacing and trading and the crossfires with that team. That's actually version 1 right now. Version 1 is so fast and so quick, and they're very, very good with their utility. They're another team that's very, very explosive when it comes down to the execution, just like Cloud9, just like the Guard, but they have some very aggressive, trading aggressive players that are just going to overrun you every single time, and they just make any team that they play against look like clowns. I love the version 1 that we're seeing right now, and what's changed ever since Xander came into this roster.
Yeah, to me, this is another one of these teams that, or another one of these matchups, rather, where you have a team that plays very well fundamentally and as a team versus a team that has a lot of pop-up potential in their individuals and are really relying on those individual stars to make plays and create round wins, generate round wins off of them. Sentinels seem to be one of those teams, and if you have a day where version 1, through their team play, through their strategy, are shutting down tens. They're shutting down sick and not allowing them to pop off and generate the round wins that they normally do. Then it's very hard for Sentinels to claw their way back in here.
Agreed.
How impactful is it that tens didn't have a good series, guys? And why is this?
Oh man. Again, if you want to look at or just talk a little bit about this map here on Haven, was I talk about how explosive this team is, and they just utility dump so quickly on an execution that even Sideshow was even talking about as a stat when he was casting with Bren, saying that 10 out of the 12 rounds that they play on attack, they pretty much put the spike plant down. So they're so good at overthrowing their opponents, especially with how it starts off the round. Like they go with a Zelsis knife, or it's on the default boxes of C, or it's on the default boxes of A. What's the area of effect that covers? Pretty much the whole fucking site. If there's actually a corner that's not going to be covered, by a 0 point to find information, they're also going to throw like an aftershock into that corner or a fragment into that corner. So they're always able to get into a site that's open, right? And then when you play the pulse plant, well, then again, I mean, everyone's seen the fucking Xander Ace as well on Omen on this map when he was playing the pulse plant area, but they're running the same type of play style too on retakes on sites. So they're very, very comfortable of giving you a spike plant, and then they'll just overthrow the amount of utility to just fucking destroy you on the retakes. It's so quick. It's so fast. Like I said, I don't think it's on Sentinels that actually didn't look that great. It's just how version 1 are a step above right now.
Yeah, Sentinel or version 1 are doing a really good job of shutting down tens, and it's not just tens, right? Like it's easy to put the blame on his shoulders due to his superstar status and him being the face of the team, really. But I think Sick is a huge part of this team, and if Sick is not being supported properly, if he's being shut down by the enemy team, he's not having a good game, it's really hard for Sentinels to thrive, right? So you have tens going -17 on the series, Sick going -10. Those are your 2-star fraggers that you're relying on to generate the firepower to offset Zoms and Dapper, with Shazam's calling. And if those guys aren't pulling up their end of the bargain, it's really hard for Dapper, Zoms, Shazam to step up and pull out that series win.
Yeah, I mean, tough obviously for Haven. Tens, I mean, did okay, but he's 0-7 first kill, first death. Like he's not able to make any impact in the early parts of those rounds. I feel like that's a pretty big contributor there as well. No way to take the pressure off them for Sentinels. A little bit tough now. Xander tweets, fair enough. I bet you had this one sat in the drafts for a bit. Obviously, this is back when he's on Saw, and Shazam is a little skeptical, I guess, about Xander's potential in the longer run.
Yeah.
Well, revenge is a dish best served cold, I guess. The only thing is about it is that there's that big old number above Shazam's head. You know what I mean? I mean, that's still something to aspire to, I guess. Maybe Rise are aspiring to that too much, personally, but that's fine.
That's one thing, and apparently they might have a coach locked in before playoffs, according to Twitch clips. So, is it Sean Gares? Is it Sen Gares?
I thought it was
We can talk about
Sentinels Vansilli coming into coach Sentinels. No?
Have you seen? Have you just listened to me for the past 2 hours? I've been saying nothing. So I'm just kidding. But no, there's no way I could be a coach right now.
Yeah, what do you think about this Sen Gares rumor, though? Do you think there's any truth to that? I mean, he seems like a very suitable position for the guy.
I think it makes total sense. I mean, you're looking at Sean Gares, Sick, and Shazam. You know, Sean Gares, Sick, and Shazam have all played together in Misfits. Sean Gares has led Shazam to what the 2015 Cloud9 run. Was Shazam in that roster? If not, IGLing with was Sean Gares. I think there was Skadoodle in there. There was Freakazoid in there. There was nothing in there. I don't know if it was Shazam the 5th player or not. Nonetheless, I think that would make sense.
Shroud.
Yeah, Shroud maybe.
It would be, it'd be nice for Sean, as as someone who has a child, to not have to fucking wonder where his next paycheck is coming from.
That's the other thing, and that's why it makes sense. That's why I tweeted out and replied to him when that happened to say, "Look, it makes sense. You got fucking mouse to feed. You need to make sure that you secure the bag." And even though Sean Gares loves casting, he said, "Look, being able to cast right now allows me to spend time with my family and have a better work-life balance, better than coaching, for example. But now, if you actually do have to put food on the table at that point too, and coaching is like the next best thing, you kind of have to sacrifice a little bit of that time.
Well, how are you supposed to cover? How are you supposed to cover your costs when, like, one week to another, you just don't know if you're going to fucking cast an event?
Yeah,
it's actually insane to me. This is the tweet here, so I'll read it out to you. Several days ago, I received the heartbreaking news that I didn't make the talent cut for Masters 1 in Reykjavik. After receiving the news, I've decided to focus on getting more involved in the competitive scene and will no longer be accepting broadcast talent positions. Follow up, I've discussed my decision with Riot and they were kind enough to accept it and amicably part ways. So more news soon. So obviously, Sean indicating, first and foremost that, he's just not doing this anymore. Like, he's not putting him, because here's the thing. When you're trying to be a caster in Valorant, there's just piles and piles of average casters and some good ones, but a lot of fucking average, and everyone's just trying to crawl over each other to get these events. And I know what the average caster in Valorant is charging, and it's definitely less than what someone like Sean is charging. He has to charge that much because he's that good, and he also has a fucking family to feed. These casters that become casters during COVID charging fuck all, because they can. It's all right, fuck me dead. I don't blame the guy. Why should you have to fucking compete with this? Why should you have to? And I said, why should you have to live under this caprice from Riot, where one week it's yeah, you're in, and next week it's not? Those motherfuckers. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing over at Riot. And here's the thing: it's not just. You guys really think it's just Sean? You guys really think that Sean is the only person negatively affected by Riot having no fucking idea how to organize a piss up in a brewery?
Yeah, this all just seems like
definitely
who's
not
co-commentator. What do you think fucking
definitely
DDK is going to do?
Yeah,
he hasn't announced anything yet.
It seems very, very bad decisions by Riot. And I mean, you could say, oh, it's they're focusing less on skill and more on the entertainment value and what the fans want. But I think in Sean's case, it's both. He has both. He has the skill. He's one of the best. Yeah. The fans want Sean and DDK in almost every single broadcast. So at that point, it has to be the money, right? Maybe he's getting undercut by somebody who's an average level, and they don't want to splurge to bring Sean in, and that's a whole different discussion. But I understand, as someone who, has a daughter to feed, like you can't be worrying about,
Two now,
am I going to pay for my house in a couple months, So I understand his swap to potentially coaching if that's the route he's going to go, or GMing, or maybe even as a player, who knows what he's going to do. But I think the Sentinels coach position makes the most sense, right? Like Shazam has said explicitly in the past, I want a coach who is a former player. And I think Sean checks all the boxes for that. He doesn't want a coach that's going to come in that, doesn't have that experience as a player, that experience as an IGL. So especially with the wording of Sean's tweet where he says, more news coming tomorrow. And he already kind of mentioned that he's going into competitive. It seems like something's already lined up. And with Sentinels already in the hunt for a coach, it seems like that may already be a done deal.
No brainer. Yeah.
Definitely some dots that are easy to connect. I think the other aspect as well you have to consider is that Sean works in North America, and North American Valorant is so much more messed up than what we have in EMEA. At least for us, we have decent stability in that we know, say for example, if I don't get a Masters event this year, that will hurt. Obviously financially that would hurt. Fucking suck to miss out as well. But I know that I'm gonna get the work throughout the regular season. I actually I don't know to what extent I'm even allowed to talk about contracts, but we have in EMEA now, at least it's a very small number, but it's still a guaranteed number of days across the year. So coming into this year, for the first time ever in my life, I've been told, you're going to get X amount of days this year on the EMEA broadcast. That is amazing to have. Now, the number will be higher than that. The number that was guaranteed is obviously a lot lower than what we normally get. Yeah, but it means no matter what I know, I have this amount of money this year. I can plan for worst case scenario. I have income of this amount, and this is what I can do with it. Whereas in North America, from what I understand, people are working for free. People are just like ready to undercut in absolutely any scenario to fuck people over, and it leads to Sean. I remember at one point, fans, was it you across like 2 months? I think I got my dates, and I had whatever like 10 days or something. Across 2 months, I think you told me you had like 3. And that was the same for everyone in NA, by the way. Like, everyone I reached out to, was talking to, they were like, yeah, the next 2 months, I've got like 3 days of work. Awesome. And then you see people that are there every single day that are not, your Sean Gares and whatever. That's fine. People need opportunities and shit. But if you're going to give someone that's a tier 1 caster, it's someone like Sean especially, man. Like, he's one of the most fucking enjoyable people to listen to on wherever you put him on a broadcast. You're going to give him what? 10 days of work a year. None of it's guaranteed, right? It could be 0, but you're gonna give maybe 10 days at an international event here or there at a rate that I guess is not acceptable. Anyways, it's wild. It's wild.
Let me tell you.
Shame to lose if we do.
I'm so fucking sick of this, man. I've been like, I've been waiting through this absolute bog for so long now. I mean, a couple of things. Like, I think Riot's target market for casters are people who don't intend to use casting Valorant as their main source of income. Probably streamers that, make a decent amount anyway, because Riot can then leech their cultural relevance in the space and put them on the broadcast. This is why I said it. It is a budget thing.
Do you get the streamers?
Why should these motherfuckers be the first one on your list to cut when it comes to budget? You're just keeping a bunch of fucking average casters, and these guys are the first to get the chop. The people that actually are trying to create their magnum opus in Valorant casting. And I know I have it on good authority that this came in straight from Riot's mouth. They said, we don't believe in a meritocracy when it comes to selecting our casters. It doesn't fucking matter how good you are. Then no one gives a shit. They don't give a shit about that. It doesn't fucking matter. Are you cheap? Excellent. Because they don't give a fuck about the casters, because all the clips that Riot are jerking themselves off over on Reddit are ones from co-streams where the fucking casting's basically muted. I mean, they've been working to devalue casting for ages by pushing this whole co-streaming angle. That's fine. If people want that, that's totally fine. But like, this is all I say to Valorant casters. Don't fucking go to Riot and expect job security, expect agency, or even fucking recognition from what you're doing in North America. Because you're not going to get it, and they don't give a shit about you. They don't fucking care. They just don't. I'm fucking sick of this shit. And I negotiated with Riot before. I ran into this shit. And you know what Riot are doing now? They're using the fact that co-streaming is taking off, and there's just an influx of average casters coming into the space to force a market correction in casting rates so that people with actual families can't actually do this for a living. You have to go do something else. It's fucking over. if you're trying to make this shit happen with Riot. Unless you want to be the biggest bootlicking, sycophantic motherfucker willing to drop your rates and say, yes, man, 3 bags full every time they say something, then good on you. You never have my respect, though.
That's why even for me, when coming in as a caster, and I was like, oh, well, co-streaming is an opportunity for me to still, like, get some sort of, like, relevancy and stuff like that too as well, while I'm not able to work these events. But now that I look at it from the other aspect to be like, well, now that co-streaming is basically free here for Riot to give away for streamers who are popular to still get numbers and viewership and people to watch their game and watch their event and play and have that player base, then I want to know like where what the goal is right now. Is it going to be like to turn this into like an esport and make it very popular where people could now focus on the mainstream and watch, or is it just going to be like, hey, let's try to reach out to a lot of people with the co-streaming and whatnot, um, cut our costs and what it would be like for talent who have been working very hard to be at the top, and then just use this new player base from the fan base from the co-streamers to just have new players in our game anyways, so that they could spend money on skins and then get our revenue that way. And I hope that it's going to be the first part to try to grow the esport more, and maybe eventually try to cut down on the amount of co-streams so that we can actually bring that value into these.
I mean, they would cut down on co-streams because it benefited them. Like they do what they did in League of Legends, right? They'd start telling the people what they could co-stream. Like this, like if you are looking at Valorant and you can see what's happening in League of Legends and you don't think that Riot are going to do the exact same thing once they realize they can control the narrative, like there is something legitimately wrong with you. Sorry. You know, like in I think over in League, I don't know if this is still a thing, but they were definitely making it very, they were telling people what they could co-stream. Like they weren't allowing co-stream for Worlds as well. I think even like Captain Flowers had to wait
I was gonna say
24 hours before he could even show that content on stream. So, you know, once Riot established the cultural relevance with co-streams and Valorant they look for, there's nothing stopping them. And they definitely don't have a moral quandary about pulling the rug out underneath that co-streaming ecosystem they've created in order to, you know, funnel more viewers over to their product. But none of this will be done in order to support the casters. Like that's never been an interest of Riot's. Like there are like award-winning casters over at Riot that are still scrounging to try and get raises to account for inflation, let alone a actual bump in their salary. Yeah, like I think I just, you know, there are a lot of casters that come into this space maybe with rose-tinted glasses, or maybe they just have a naivety about it. But I think it's actually getting harder and harder for casters to make a living. And I think as time goes on, it's gonna esports organizations and TOs are gonna try and push this into like a part-time gig. To be honest with you, you know, so I would say like that's why I said party's over, right? Because you know I definitely think there's a correction happening in terms of salary, and it's happening in all sort of esports right now. I reckon I would have got fucked by Blizzard if I didn't have a 2-year deal, straight up. Like I don't trust any of these orgs to really display their appreciation, their value of their talent. There's too many of you guys in Valorant for any of you to make a proper living off doing this, right? And there's just more and more and more. And right, as soon as someone like, you know, Sean or you know, I don't know what Dan's situation is, but as soon as they start asking for what I agree that they should be getting paid, right? It's like they're the first name on the list to get cut. The first fucking name. You know what I mean? And when they evaluate like the cost to benefit ratio of talent, it's they do it very poorly. There's a good thread by Carlton Curtis, who used to be the talent manager over at Activision Blizzard and now is working, I think, for Guild or something like that. And he basically put it like, there's no investment in your talent. Talent get the raw end of the stick because they get blamed. They get blamed when like people stop watching, or like people like try and say like, oh, talent doesn't move the needle, so like we don't need to get particularly good talent that's expensive. We'll just get fucking anybody. Like this is honestly what these esports orgs and TOs think. Just fucking put anybody out there. They either don't know how to evaluate the quality of the viewer, or they have no way of getting feedback on it because like that co-streaming's so front and center that like the casting is slowly starting to, you know, become more obscure. So
yeah,
that's not all even Riot's fault. But I don't have any. I know for a fact I don't believe in a meritocracy. So if you're a caster who's trying to cast with Riot and you think you can get there just based off of hard work and actually showing a great product, you're delusional. You're absolutely delusional.
That's me. That's me, Vansilli. I'm delusional. No, but joking aside, though, I do have that fear as well, right? I think that's probably the reason why you grind so many hours, or I grind so many hours watching VODs or streaming and stuff that I do, so that I could actually stay relevant within the scene and making sure that I'm at the top of my game.
Yeah, don't worry about being good though, Vance. Just be funny and be viral. Just be fucking viral, homie. You don't even have to be good at casting. Forget about it. The institution of this craft is getting fucking shit on.
Yeah, that's where I'm scared, because I'm on my fucking 20th year of fucking casting video games, and I always want to be the best at every fucking game that I broadcast. So I want to be the best Valorant caster. And if one of the best, if not the best color caster right now in the scene just got fucking shafted, then I don't know what's there for even aspiring casters that are trying to get to that top level as well.
What does it mean about what Riot values in their casters? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure Riot are seeing this, right? Like they pull up the Valorant category on Twitch and they see, NSG mainstream 30K, Tarek 35K. On the mainstream, you have DDK and Sean getting paid very well to give very insightful analysis and actually entertain and educate the viewer on what's going on. But then you got Tarek stream and he's like, "Oh, that shit was crazy, bro! Like, what the fuck?" Like he's just kind of hanging out, right? And that's cool. If you're a young kid and you might just want to watch, a pro player or an ex-pro player sit around and
you don't want to think too hard,
the shit, right?
No?
But if your eventual plan is to pull the rug out from under that and not allow those co-streams anymore, then why is the focus not on making your actual product as good as it could possibly be in preparation for that?
Yeah. In the end, so far so good, at least for me as a North American caster. I'm happy, but I do have I always have that lingering in the back of me.
If they fuck with you, that's it. I'm going there in person, Vance. I'm telling you right now. If they fuck with you or Mitch, I swear to God, I'm gonna fuck shit up. I think it's a bit of a different situation in Europe. I think also like the English speaking market, like sort of broadcast talent pool's a little small. There are definitely people on the outside of the right infrastructure, but I think for you guys, it's probably not as difficult, I think, to sort of hold ground. And I've seen Riot in Europe make more concessions as well. Like I think one thing that people don't realize is that they've allowed you pairs to lock in, right? There's no switching of broadcast pairs over there.
That took a lot of fighting. I
imagine it did. And I have my own suspicions about which individual really got Riot to capitulate on that. But Riot in North America say that their philosophy is not to have these solid pairs all the time, right? I know that Sean and DDK had to push back against that a lot. We're spending hours and hours trying to teach Riot lessons they should already have learned, and I'm not really sure why that is. They want to institute their own philosophy. You know what I mean? They want to be a law unto themselves in that regard. So that's really good to hear about guys in Europe. Obviously, I know Trevor and everybody do a great job over there. So that's a good sign. I don't know if we'll see NA take EU's lead, because that's never really been how things are done.
Here's the thing, though, because I don't know the full story of what's behind the scenes with all that as well, but at least, again, for me, I'm super well treated here in North America, and I'm pretty sure that, and not to put words into Sean's mouth, but I feel
stop.
Right.
Stop.
It's more.
Stop.
I'm
you and I tried to cast together for LCQ. What happened?
True.
What the fuck happened?
True.
What happened? What happened?
We got shafted.
But they're splitting you guys up, right? To the way that I understand it is they're trying to put experienced casters with inexperienced casters in order to train up the inexperienced caster, right? But if you're this experienced caster and you have this finished product with your duo that you're trying to push and get better at, and you're trying to solidify your spot and your job security, is training up this inferior caster who's eventually just going to undercut you salary wise and push you out the door, even something you want to be doing. They're pushing you to do this. They're pushing you to train your replacement, almost like a shitty corporate job.
It's also not just that. To be honest, I would say training your replacement, everybody does that within the talent industry as standard. I think it was something that shocked me when I came in, how fucking helpful everyone was that at least I had to look to run into along the way. People who you would be working with, and you're like, I am, if I am good, I'm technically your competitor in the future, right? And here you are helping me, but people don't think twice about that, and it's a really, really nice atmosphere in that regard. But I think that it's a little bit scary at the same time to see somebody who's kind of so well established be tossed to the side, because it does very much put that idea of okay, cool, well, Sean Gares isn't safe, so none of us are.
That's it. So to get back to that point, I think that Sean probably has that support for North America, just as MitchMan you would for EU. But I think the issue that stems into what Sean tweeted was because he didn't get picked for Masters, which then comes into what discussions, what happened in the original discussions with Riot Global, I guess, at this point, to be like, okay, at Masters 1, technically, we should have you, Sean. Then Masters 1's around the corner, and then Sean got the fucking shaft. So where did that decision change? Where did the conversation change? That's where it gets complicated.
I mean, I can guess. Let me take a wild guess. Right, they had to cut caster pairs because of budget issues. Right, they probably would have had X amount of caster pairs, and then they realized they had to tighten the budget up, and then they were the ones that got lopped off.
Depends.
That's what I think probably happened.
Depends, because I'm pretty sure whoever's going to be announced for Masters ones, because we don't know that yet. I'm pretty sure whoever's going to be announced for Masters are still going to be casting pairs. Because I think, yes, we had the issue of, at least in North America.
But, I mean, just because DDK hasn't said anything doesn't mean he didn't get fucked as well. You know what I mean? He probably did, Vans.
For sure,
he probably did.
But I'm just talking about those that would get announced, right? So, for example, if Pansy gets announced, she's not going to be announced casting with MitchMan. She's probably going to be getting announced casting with Hypok. If MitchMan gets announced, it's probably going to be him with Tombiz. So there are, and if it's going to be Achilleos, it's probably Achilleos and Paperthin. So there are those that are currently working as duos are still going to go to Masters as duos. In North America, I think we finally got to the point where we are giving more value to duos, because if you look at the amount of like, have I casted with anybody else in the season? No, I've only casted with Riv. Has Doug casted with anybody else? Mostly Bala, a little bit of Ender, but because Ender doesn't have a duo, and they're still trying to figure that out. But I think they're starting to solidify and give value to those duos or at least the image of the duos in North America. I do see that.
Who had to die to win? Who had to die to teach this fucking lesson to Riot? That's my issue. Right?
Yeah,
Sean died for this.
In EMEA,
for example, you know.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about the duos in particular, in EMEA, the way that went down was, I guess, over time you just notice if you have one duo who is working together, right? Well, this is what happened, right? You have Pansy and Hypok. You can see the consistent improvement there, right?
Of course.
And then other people being put with a different caster every week. I mean, there was a point where I think across 2 weeks I cast with 3 different people,
like me.
which were exactly right. And it's tough, you know. You can have a good show.
I've casted with different people. I've done different roles. One day I'm doing play-by-play. One day I'm doing color. One day I'm at the desk.
Yep.
I can't fucking be good at one thing right now. I'm like
I mean, they were trying to fucking make me, by the way, like a fairly celebrated play-by-play caster, run the desk 3 days at LCQ to host the fucking desk. Yeah, awesome. So I can teach everyone else how to do their job. Like, what? Like, sorry. You know what I mean? And because really quickly, we do have to move on from this, unfortunately. But just the idea of training up a new caster, it's fine. But like, the philosophy doesn't make sense because it's a shit philosophy, right? You guys don't know what you're talking about when it comes to talent. Whether it's you, Waylon Roselle, or someone else that propagated this nonsense, you're dumb and you don't know what you're talking about. I hate to say it. But you can train another caster off air really easily. Really easy. Like VOD review and practice casting is super easy to do. You don't have to bring them on air and risk having a substandard product to fucking train another caster. In fact, it's detestable to do that because you put them in a situation they might not be ready to deal with adequately. And normally the stronger caster just overshadows the weaker one. And the weaker one just sort of, I've seen this multiple times. I've had
it's the
so many
whole duo that
pairs
looks like shit. It's the duo that looks like shit, unfortunately. And like I said, which is why I'm joking around that I was doing 3 roles the last time, but at least now I'm like 95% doing play-by-play in my duo with Riv that I've been placed with, which is great because now cast by cast I'm getting better. But to what Uber's saying is, if you're actually training your peers or whatnot, your future peers, but you're putting them in a spot where they're not ready, not only are they going to look bad, but you're also going to reflect very badly being the person casting with that person because your the whole product sounded like shit.
You also end up just fucking the new person completely, I feel like, because if you think about it, say
and yourself.
say you throw me in with DDK at a Masters event instead of Sean, what's the comment going to be? What's Reddit going to be talking about? What's the first thing everyone's going to? Where the fuck is Sean? Why is this guy there? The person that replaces the whoever is taken out there, the guy who's coming in to train, is going to get shit on by the community because they're not that other person. And as the cast goes on, I mean, hell, if they're there to train up, they're not going to be Sean Gares. They're not going to be DDK. So they're going to be worse. So now the cast is going to be worse. So now they're going to be like, not only is the guy I like not here, this guy who's here instead is shit. He's nowhere near as good as this other guy. fuck this guy, I hate him. And now, you know, the guy that you're training is publicly just fucking hated by the community and probably getting nothing for it. So that's just
like,
terrible.
actually, the cemented duos come into like the budget stuff as well, like because it becomes not just we can't afford you, Sean, but we can't afford you and DDK.
And you,
Like if it's a package deal and you both cost a lot of money, then now we have to pay both of you instead of just one of you. They were going to stick
me with Sean and with DDK respectively as casting pairs when I did LCQ.
Yeah,
and I was like,
fucked.
that is, I do not win here at all. Yeah. You are breaking up one of the favorite pairs in NA. You're fucking shoehorning an Overwatch caster in there. I mean, I cast Valorant. I've done it before, but like, you know, this is what it looks like. So I look bad. The product is going to be worse than if you just fucking put me with Vansilli, who I've casted with before, and let Sean and DDK cast together. I just want to point out before we move on, great comment here in the thread by Keznit, who says, the best advice I have to any talent, you are competing in a saturated market where operators are incentivized to have you not be essential to the show. Because that would mean you have leverage. They don't want that. So you should gain your leverage outside of the game. Broadcast, build brands, content create, and rely on casting is like nice to have. It's no longer about merit in the industry as a caster. It is all about leverage. Don't think that your loyalty is going to get you anywhere because your loyalty compromises your leverage. Fuck loyalty. Go and build that leverage and then use it mercilessly against these tournament organizers. Turn them into a fucking pretzel with that leverage because they don't give a shit about you. And they don't want you getting into any position where you might be considered essential to the show because then they have to pay. And they don't want to fucking do that. That's paraphrasing a little bit there as well. But thanks for that, Keznit.
Hopium for me. They like me.
Yes. Yeah. It's just so important to be likable, isn't it, Vance? I swear to God, Vance. You know, if it, I hope it doesn't go wrong for you, but if it does, I'm going to be just as mad at you as I am at them, you know, because hopefully I want to be jaded. I want to be the one that's just disillusioned and can't see the silver lining here, right? But if I'm right, so help me God, I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to bring you back to them. I'm going to fucking kill you again. I'm going to resuscitate you and I'm going to slap the shit out of you. I really hope that your philosophy, Vance, is the one that works out because it would restore my faith as well into humanity and the way the industry goes, because I've just seen I've talked to too many casters that are getting completely fucked by this, and it is really sad. Anyway, gonna go to break. First of all, Syyko, thanks for coming on. I saw we got you embroiled in that whole conversation.
Love to be here, guys.
Hey, welcome to VALORANT, dude.
Yeah. Great to have you back on the show there. We'll definitely do it again soon, man. Good luck, of course, to XSET in these playoffs, man. You guys have earned your spot there, so best of luck.
Thanks so much. Hope to make you proud and prove Vansilli wrong.
Hell yeah,
yeah.
I
like that. I wanted to be proven wrong in multiple ways. That's for sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back after the break. I'm going to take a deep breath. Let us collect ourselves. We're going to talk about VCT EMEA because we've had some games there this week. Mitch is going to come alive in a big way. We'll see you on the other side of the break. If you've been enjoying VALORANTing, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get every episode hot off the presses. Welcome back, everybody, to VALORANTing. Breakdown's cancelled this week because I've used all my ranting up and my blood pressure is already spiking. Doctor says can't risk that. So yeah, forget about it. Maybe next week. Vance has stepped aside for just a second, classically, which is fine. He might have woken up the roosters. Who sort of knows, if you know what I mean. Mitch, though, we're still working through VCT EMEA, right? We've had to get some matches done from week 4. Week 5 is not quite done yet. We're not on patch 4.04 yet, right? No. Explain this sort of to me.
Yeah, so we're not running that patch yet, which means we're still in the old meta. We haven't got those crazy changes in, which means still quite a lot of Astra play coming through. That's going to be changed then coming into playoffs. So I think next week, being this weekend, we'll be still on the old patch again, and then the week after we'll move on to catch up with the rest of you guys, I suppose. Yeah,
all right, I guess so. Oh, yeah, carry on.
Take the cable out. Hopefully you guys can hear me, so I guess it wasn't essential. That's it sort of sets us up in a weird spot because of all the issues that have been happening here in Europe. Obviously, with the war going on, you've got this situation that even the teams that maybe did have time to prep new meta maybe didn't have time technically. So yeah, it definitely makes sense to pump the brakes on that a little bit, and we'll check back in I guess next week, and hopefully we'll be on new patch and everything's gonna be fun.
So we do have some results though, right?
Vansilli?
Head
Stuff?
Okay, so we have like so stage one. Okay, so it's week 5 chronologically, but in terms of VCT EMEA, it's like it's technically
it doesn't
not.
matter. Just wild at this point.
So I think
There's
what we
week
still
1
have,
games and all. It's wild.
we have 5 games to be played still, and
Yes.
3 of them I think involved M3C, right?
Yes.
We did have Fnatic. Fnatic did play though, so they. Oh, we'll get onto it. We'll get onto it. Anyway, this is our results here. So Fnatic obviously over Supermassive Blaze, pretty comfortable win there. Any real sort of standout matches? Excuse me, from this quote unquote week 5.
To be honest, kind of weirdly, the Guild versus Supermassive Blaze was an interesting one just because, for me, those Turkish teams that came in, and you saw them at the start of the week with the Fnatic and G2 games, Turkish teams don't weigh up to the top level of EMEA. They're a tier below. So for me, maybe they get a couple rounds, they might pick up a map, but for the most part, I do not expect a series between a G2, a Fnatic, a Guild, any of these teams, even a Liquid, FPX, to look close versus one of these Turkish teams. And yet, coming into that Guild game, despite the fact that Guild have been playing pretty well, and they're a very competent lineup with Trex in particular, he had a tough game, and the entirety of Guild did as well. SMB at a certain point actually looked like they might be able to win that series. The last map was 19-17 in favor of Guild. So a team that is now knocked down to the relegation tournament, being SMB, they're out of EMEA VCT for now. They'll have to fight their way back in. Almost managed to beat down Guild, and Guild were, at the time at least, our top performing team. So it's kind of weird to see that little flash in the pan, but it was a little bit too late for SMB. And obviously a bunch more games here over on the second screen. You might think, okay, so we've had a good performance from SMB versus Guild, and now BBL up against Acend. They win. Oh, Turkey's redeemed. But no, Acend didn't have Zeek. There's a lot with him not being there, and I don't really put any sort of stock in BBL or SMB still.
All right, well, let's talk about this Acend BBL game real quick. Anything to really take away from this one? Obviously, look, I mean, not having Zeek, pretty huge blow.
Yeah. So for the people at home, Zeek took a mental health break coming into this week. Obviously, that doesn't fare too well for Acend with them losing this series. Look, really, really good promise from BBL. Some great rounds from them there, but consistency is key. And right now, beating a team like Acend when they're missing Zeek, someone we know brings a lot in the rounds around, not just in his individual ability, but also from a leadership perspective as well. We know that this guy formerly had IGL positions on teams, like even coming in doing a lot of calling for G2 when Mixwell was on that roster. So you imagine taking him out, it's just such a big deficit for Acend to play on that you really, as BBL, you sit there and go, okay, you won that game. That's still decent. It does still mean that they won a game against some incredible individuals, but we never really questioned the Turkish team's ability individually. That was never something that was called into question. I want to see what they can do against a tier 1 team who's playing at their best, and so far they haven't been able to do much in those scenarios.
What can you tell us about Team Liquid versus Big then? Obviously, another rather inauspicious matchup, I think, for TL at least. I mean, close first map though. Bind, was pretty tight, but Split not so much.
Yeah, Bind was really fun just because of Twistin. Watching this guy blast pack around that map and dominate duels against some of the best in the game was a lot of fun. But sadly, that story ends exactly as we expected when we moved to map 2 after, what was it, 14-12 on Bind. It was an OT game. The Team Liquid came out ahead in, but then they moved on to their map pick, and, well, yeah, it was as clean as you expected it to be. And I will ultimately just bring it back to the fact that, Big have played a sloppy enough game in some of the matches that but most of the matches I think that they've played, certainly towards starting off EMEA, they weren't really that fun of a team to watch. They weren't very clean in how they approached some of the rounds. Certainly when things became chaotic, assembling it back together, recovering what wasn't that fun to watch, which is weird for a team with Gabi. But we hoped the Big would sort of assemble themselves and become better, more powerful as time went on. They have. They've looked better, but this is still a middling team when it comes to the top of VCT. It likes a Team Liquid, competing with a team that isn't a Vera, Scream, and Yumpy. and then you note that on split, those guys were the bottom of the scoreboard. Well,
Yep.
yeah, it's a hard team to beat.
All right. Well, that sort of set. I think there were 9 matches this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 also in EMEA.
Let's go through them all.
We got a lot to go through. We actually are, because we're fucking Valoranting, all right? We don't do things by halves here, all right? We say it's going to be a 1-hour episode. It's never a fucking 1-hour episode. But let's talk about our match of the week here. Guild versus G2. Look, a matchup that I think people are pretty excited for. Group B's kind of stacked, right? Acend, Guild, Fnatic, G2, all in this group. So basically every time we see G2 in a matchup, we know it's going to be pretty spicy. Let's talk about expectations going into this sort of series, because I think obviously the expectations that Guild are looking pretty scary right now, pretty squeaky clean record. Heading into this particular matchup, even though the SMB game was a little closer than would have liked it to be.
Yeah. Obviously, the SMB one showed some flaws, but I think the hope was there that Guild maybe came in not so focused. They were against a team at the bottom of the table. They were guaranteed playoffs already at this point, if I'm not mistaken. So really not a situation that they needed to be fully focused in on. But SMB were incredible, to be honest, in that game. So look, we can cut Guild some slack. Coming into this game, then the hope was that this would be Guild, really showing us a 3-mapper at a minimum. But G2 came off the bat swinging. Now, there were a couple games we could have went with this week. FPX Liquid, for example, was incredibly exciting. The Fnatic Ascend, obviously that was when Zeek was still there. But this G2 game, for me, I think that the G2 roster in its current state, the fact that we've been swapping over players left, right, and center, then Guild had that little bit of an upset versus SMB, a win as it was. This was a game that certainly set itself up to be a deciding match in terms of which one of these two teams was legit or not, I suppose.
So let's dive right in. This is round 4 here, where Guild obviously on the attacking side set up with like a bunch of utility to get them into sight, and just keep an eye on G2's economy here. This is what they're working with, right? Mixwell tries to go for that early headhunter play, and G2 have to get themselves out of this sticky situation. Mitch?
Yeah, for Guild to start off 3-0 was fantastic, but they thought they had a 4th round. I thought they had a 4th round. This really shouldn't have went the way it did. You pull out a showstopper from Nukia, and it doesn't even kill anyone. I mean, it was a round that you're definitely going to be upset with if you're Guild, to be honest. You could run that one back like 5 more times, and I'll still be fucking perplexed as to how they lost round 4.
Something about Nukia and that part of Bind, right? He always does some wacky shit there. This time doesn't even connect the showstopper. So that was G2 finally getting that round on an eco. So they do buy up into the next round. And this is interesting as well, because a lot of utility again being used. It's a really messy site take, though. G2 have to sort of again fight themselves out of this position, but they got a good amount of showers control, and safe is low with a cosmic divider.
Yeah, it's interesting here. G2 have constant mid control with the chamber setup as well. Like, Mixwell felt really comfortable in just holding down that control for them early round, ensuring there's no late split coming up, and that gives them a lot more ability to fight heads on into where this spike is planted outside of Bath. I mean, G2 barrel forward. They're not even afraid to fight into this Viper's Pit at time. And, a lot of the time when you have a Viper's Pit, you're looking for something like a drone, even a Trailblazer to lead the way and enter you in. G2 approached this one and almost like looking for trades, which is just a strange way to entry into a Viper's Pit, but fuck it worked, dude.
Yeah, it's something about G2 and looking for trades and playing in that style. Kind of a throwback here. What I found interesting about the first half of this series is that both Astra players tended to ult at the same time. So I think it's like round 8 where Avova is in like a very interesting situation, because I think both he and Cold are meant to get Cosmic to fight in this round, and it ends up being G2 with like a sort of a retake defusal situation. I mean, this is a particularly difficult series to observe, I think. What a mess.
Oh, man. Viper walls, then you throw in Cosmic Divides, Viper's Pit as well. You've got Mixwell running around like a lunatic with that headhunter as well. I can't imagine this was a relaxing series in the slide map, especially to spectate. But for us, hey, we still got to see a pretty clean overall product. Got to follow what was going on most of the time. For G2, sitting in with these pistols, trying to bait Guild in, it's not a surprise. This is pretty much why they ended up winning the previous round, right? So they lock and load, they look to run the same. This time around, though, yeah, Guild are a little bit more ready for it. You see how cautious they are, though, in taking their map control? Like, they're using utility every step of the way, clearing every single corner. Like, every nook and cranny has to be seen to be clear. Otherwise, you assume there's a G2 player there. And that's exactly why. Even though they were being so cautious about clearing the site and covering every angle, they still end up in a 2v2. And Nuke, you still got the jump on one of those players on the side itself.
Watch this.
Ridiculous.
I think Avova, pops a cosmic divide here. So now it's like, it's just, there's 2 walls up. I think like, this is where it comes down. Avova's like, hang on a minute. I might be able to do something really cheeky here. In a 2v2, no less, Avova fucking sticking the defuse. Trex has to swing this, but it's such an awkward angle and he can't see anything. It's just ridiculous. And you know what? So first of all, G2 win one of multiple thrifty rounds here on defense with just like this unnatural amount of utility in play. And 2 rounds later, Avova does basically the same fucking thing. I think he ends up in like a 1v1 and just so look, high level here. It seems like Guild are a little in the post plants. They're a little confused by just all this utility coming down. Like they feel like there's some uncertainty about how they navigate these like. I guess they would be formulaic scenarios if there wasn't like a ton of utility and weird like persistent walls and stuff to deal with.
Yeah, it's not really something that should happen, though. Going back to one of the first clips that we saw when you have G2 duel inside of Viper's Pit, like, you cannot lose those rounds. And not only that, I'll remind you, in that round, they had Russ lurking on mid. So it wasn't like everybody was in Bath and just holding the doorway and they got wrecked. Like, they had a plan and what seemed to be a pretty good setup overall. And time again, it would fall to G2 being able to come in with individual prowess. And that is not the kind of structured team that you want. And in rounds where you do end up winning or where you look incredibly good, it had to be the likes of these clutch scenarios coming out that you're seeing right now for Safe. And even then, like you said, there's the smoke, there's the diffuse, and it goes all the way through right under his nose. They almost win the round off a guy 1v3ing, and that was the hope for Guild a lot of the time, I guess, was you'd have a Trex or you'd have a Safe come out and dominate duels. But when it came to I suppose the fundamentals, honestly, they were behind.
And maybe that gets exposed a little bit more in the second half because G2 play pretty fast, pretty loose, without a jet, mind you, on this side. A lot of really fast, hard hits here. I think this is a good example of like a quick B hit where Hoodie just like explodes out here and starts to just ruin Guild. It looks like they were, again, unsteady in these scenarios as well. Like G2, it seems like the way that they're varying the pace between attack and defense really caught them off guard.
See, this is the kind of game, even though it's 9-8, G2 are leading by 1. In the first couple of seconds of this round, you can tell that G2 are winning this game convincingly because they're commanding the game, let's say that. Because as they move towards the B site, these players are barely even out B long, and that Viper's Pit is down on Sild are reactive, but in a very scared way, in a very twitchy way. It's where you make these knee-jerk decisions that give that extra bit of space for G2 to exploit you. I mean, for a minute now, G2 have just been sat here, waiting around the Viper's Pit, kind of saying, all right, Guild, you know, you've got the site, but what the fuck are you going to do now? We can be coming behind you. We can be pushing back to, hey, there's so many gaps in the information there for Guild to play with. And then when G2 eventually make a move, it is once again very fast and very direct. They're looking for duels and they're looking to trade. This is fundamental Valorant and pretty much nothing else on top of it. This isn't G2 pulling out crazy plays or anything. It's the fucking opposite. They're just shooting people and moving together, and Guild just don't have an answer for it, ever, it seems.
And what does that say about Guild that G2 can get away with this style? Like, there's no frills, very straightforward approach, working against someone who thinks arguably like a top team in this region.
I think that's the problem. You've got G2 who are a top team, and certainly in individuals, they match the firepower of what one has. They've put in the time to have the fundamentals around the back of it, as we're seeing in all these ridiculous retakes that they have. And when you're in this situation, what do Guild have over them? Well, they're certainly not aim. I mean, someone like Trex definitely can match up. Someone like Safe is just a lunatic. But in this series, Trex was quiet, and he's being put onto a lot of these roles that are not exactly duelist. They're not something that's going to allow you to succeed hugely individually a lot of the time, in the way that Trex wants to, being very like kind of jet raise aggressive. And then you certainly do not have the tactic to back it up. You certainly don't have the fluidity when everything's go to shit to adapt, because as we see in these post plans, everything just sort of devolves into, I'll hide in my little corner and wait for someone to peek me and hopefully win the fights. The occasional crossfire setup or two, but that's it. And I think for Guild, that tells me you need more time. You gotta just get more reps under their belt to see them become a unit, because right now they're a team of pretty good players. Everyone on that roster. I mean, Leo, I haven't mentioned Leo once since he started on Guild, and that's a tragedy in this season, because he has been one of the main points that we've discussed time and time again on the old Guild lineup. But so much has changed here, and I think this is a team that needs to find direction. And coming into next season, if they don't have that, I'll be very worried.
G2 get to go on the offense on Icebox here, and they kind of continue the same trend, right? It's a different map, sure, but the mindset seems really similar. They just want to push forward here, and they hit this A site really hard over and over again. And nothing about this is crazy. Like, I'm not seeing any like revolutionary use of utility, right? Standard Viper wall, cut off screens, obviously the Sage util to try and slow them down from Ras or whatever. But G2 seem to get away with this kind of side hit really frequently, and Guild rarely have the economy to do too much about it. Like, Safe's trying to play ahead of the util here, but he's not able to slow G2 down.
So this is was this the round that we saw the? No, it can't have been. Okay, I thought maybe this is where what we were talking about earlier, the lockdown that went into play, and then the mist nade on top of it, but we didn't see that this time around. With Icebox, this is a map that G2 have always looked comfortable on. With someone like Mixwell on this map, I mean, especially when he was back in the day taking a Viper. I loved his Viper on this map. But now back in the Jet role, fair enough. The thing that I'll say about Icebox is that G2 have done this previously on Ascent when they feel super comfortable. Mixwell has these sort of ideas of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's run that every single round. Let's rush a site on Ascent, round in, round out. And they do it here. Guild still, what we say one of the problems was in the previous map, the fluidity, right? Adapting to things that they weren't quite there in these chaotic moments. And in this map, I think it again underlines it. You have a team hitting A side again, and they cannot do anything about it on this defensive side. That is a severe problem. Now, obviously, this is G2's map pick, but that means Guild chose the defense. They wanted to start here, and they couldn't defend A on Icebox. That pretty much sums that one up. It's not a great start to it at all.
And we have a bunch of clips that basically show the same thing. I'm pretty sure it happens in, this is round 7 right now here, where, again, like, Guild got their economy broken the prior round, right? Dealing with, like, the Viper's Pit and the straight up A hit. And then, I want to show this round because Guild say, fuck this. All right, they're hitting A. They 4-stack the A site. And then G2 just fuck off. G2, this is the first round that G2 go B, and they call it perfectly. Look at the fucking minimap. Like, this is not your day.
They've popped out their knife early or something. Yeah, it was actually Trex put it out, and you're like, oh shit, why is there no one outside A on the 12th round? But yeah, they're on B site. They're pitted up, and now Guild feel like fucking morons walking back in here after leaving it wide open. This was, it's 8-3 up top. Guild won the pistol. So out of the 10 rounds that we had play out, Guild won round number 8. And other than that, it was pistols. Dominance. Yeah.
They won both fucking pistols. The only non-pistol rounds they won 3 non-pistol rounds, right? Mm-hmm. And they only, on one of those occasions did they manage to settle their economy. G2's defense looked pretty good. After losing the pistol, they're not winning a gun round. Guild are able to fire back here. This is round number 15 right now, and this is a round that G2 win that sort of unsettles Guild enough in terms of economy that allows them to sort of come back and sort of break them here. But talk us through the setup. Pretty fundamental here. There's a lot of umming and ahhing though about it, sort of this B side hit.
Yeah, I think G2 playing retake on B is something that we've come to expect. These guys have a lot of presence on the A site. They put down their wall there early. I mean, they tell you straight away that we think the A side is the most important. And if they want to take B, well, fine. You know, they can take B, but G2 are comfortable retaking it. And first of all, for Nuki to get that second kill was just an absolute piss take. I don't know how he's able to get away with that. And while they're busy trying to go back and deal with him, the rest of the team is pushed forward. And now they're grouped up. They're ready to take these fights. And as we know, G2 get away with those pretty convincingly. You know, when I picked this as the match of the week, I thought it was pretty clear that it was going to be a 3-mapper between these two. Guild were topping out the group. Obviously, Fnatic are there now, and Guild have to fight Fnatic for that top spot. Well, Guild have to fight to... Oh, that's interesting. I think Guild can be #1 if they beat Fnatic. If they lose to Fnatic, they'll be #3 because G2 will overtake them. So it's kind of
they ain't beating Fnatic in this kind of form, Mitch. I'll be honest with you.
Though.
They look really uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you imagine these guys beating who are now the top of the group and certainly showing that they've earned it a lot more, this is not a team that you can imagine competing. My question, though, because they didn't look like this before. They looked fine. Coming into this week, this was a match everyone was super hyped about. And you can look at it from the perspective of G2 delivering, but I can't. I couldn't pause. Like, Guild played shit, I think, is the TLDR of this game. And I wanted to really show you guys all of this, watch it all through to make sure I'm not losing my fucking mind. Because this is the team that's in second place in their group. You know, this is a team that looked like they were going to top it. They had everyone excited starting things out. And, man, I don't know if what happened this week, but they didn't look like that team anymore.
Losing to a team that squeaked through because of whatever happened between BBL and Acend. It's pretty crazy.
True. Yeah.
I mean, look, I think it's pretty clear to see that G2 are back in form for now until Mixwell gets benched again and Kellogg's is brought back onto the team from his position languishing on Heretics.
Sorry, Kellogg's is busy. He's busy right now. He's only
busy going, what, 2-8 in the VRL?
Oh, no, that part's over. Don't worry. They're in relegation now. So I think they just managed to hold on. So they'll be in VRL next season. So there you have it. Kellogg's, formerly one of the best players in the world, competing at all of the international events. And in times, you know, every international event, I think, making top 5. Now he's just after avoiding relegation from VRL.
Well, you know what? Yeah. Sometimes you need to eat humble pie, don't you? You got to fucking... Poor guy.
What's happened to this dude, man? Like, can you imagine? And the best part is he must be paid bank, bro. Like, his transfer fee for Heretics, because it's nothing to do with him, right? He's just been thrown into a really shitty situation.
Yeah, Heretics probably just paid all the money they made from selling off their players and getting worse ones from G2.
I mean, my theory is that they're going to sell them again.
Pneumatic chute installed between the two headquarters at G2, and they just and they just fucking load up like Kellogg's, and he's in the tube, and he's just,
I'm ready to go.
Goes through the tube and ends up at the other end of fucking Team Heretics. Just gets unfucking packed, you know? Jesus, put him in a vacuum bag. Jeez. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Fnatic. They played up against Supermassive Blaze here, and this is the team that's currently topping Group B. They're 4-0 after this week. Obviously, only that match against Guild remains to be played. It's the last one for Group B. Let's talk about it, because I think that, you know, Fnatic are definitely earning their sort of position here. I mean, Brave, obviously there was concern about like whether Brave would sort of be able to play, and that slowed things up a little bit. Looks like that's all sorted out now. And this series here is pretty comfortable for Fnatic. I think not much to say, Mitch, but I do want to hear your high level thoughts on it.
Yeah, I could have sworn that I had heard Durka say before, and I'm starting to think it was someone else on Twitter after a game, that, you know, he doesn't like playing Icebox, that his jet on Icebox doesn't feel as strong. But coming into this series, that was certainly not a problem for them. The only thing that worried me was really SMB having someone like Cutie, someone like Izzy. I think he's a very, very capable player, and on a map like Icebox can really dominate. And if Durka had like a little bit of an off performance, maybe we could have seen it go different. But I guess it plays out as expected with a nice, easy 2-1. I say easy. The first map was 13-9, and SMB won the first pistol and then lost round 2 and 3, and then they lost the second pistol as well. A 13-9 with what I'm going to say is both pistols lost effectively. Pretty fucking good for SMB, and that was Fnatic's map pick. You know, at this point, I was starting to get pretty excited. Like, oh shit, this is gonna be a good game. It was 13-4 in Ascent though, so that put that to bed pretty quick. It was a resident sleeper.
I don't know. There's nothing much to say there, really. I mean, Supermassive, they won the pistol in the first half, so yay. That's half of their rounds. So yeah, we're moving on. I don't even want to fucking see the rest of this. we're just gonna move on. All right, so let's talk about a match that was pretty highly anticipated. I think was Team Liquid versus FPX. The kind of match that you said like could easily have been like a match of the week candidate. Wasn't really. I mean, I guess it was as much of a match of the week as Guild and G2 was, kind of. But what is this? Like, what? I'm sorry. TL only win the pistol in the first half. They get smashed. They are struggling on attack to find a way to break through FPX. Don't know what it is, but they look like they were struggling.
Yeah, I mean, just on the quick point of game of the week, the other one I said, Fnatic Ascend, 13-4 and 13-10. Yeah, all the games that looked like they should have been super competitive were one-sided as hell. It was a really, really weird turn of events. Here on this map of Ascend, I absolutely loved seeing Zipan play on the KO. I mean, this guy was a lot of fun to watch. And I think at the same time, you'll see anybody on this agent do a lot of the same things that he did. And in terms of the utility usage, it was solid, but it's just Zipan, it finally felt like he was back to his good old days, the zip and go kill. And that's looking at a guy up against Scream, up against Nevera. As we said, Team Liquid, phenomenal team that they are. They got 6 rounds here. The first map was a real surprise. This is Team Liquid's map pick. This is somewhere that they should have looked pretty comfortable. And indeed, when you look back through their history on Ascent, like so far in VCT at least, this was the first time that they were going to be playing it and debuting it for us up against FPX. So I was very excited for it. This pick that I imagine would have caught FPX off guard. And one other thing that's very important to mention, we had the story earlier about Angel. Batty, or maybe it's actually coming up. I think we had it in rehearsal.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Batty G is playing there instead of Angel, and Batty G is a player that I mean, I'll say it straight up. We trialed him. I really wanted to pick him up and fucking went to war for that man, but we couldn't get him on the roster due to, let's not go into it. Bad decisions were made, and Batty G was not picked up. I fucking love this kid. He is honestly the hardest working player I've ever fucking seen. He's so young, he's so disciplined, and he listens. I swear, this guy could do everything right, and if you tell him he made a mistake, he made a mistake, and move on. He's not... I never heard him go, actually, or no, or I think. He was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll try fix that for next time. He's such a lovely dude, and he's so fucking good at this game. Showed it on Ascent. It was 19-12 as a stand-in. A fairly last-minute stand-in for FPX here against Team fucking Liquid. This guy came in and did so damn well. And then the next map, sure, okay, maybe on Haven he wasn't as fun, but it's Astra on Haven, whatever. He's still 14-12, 9 assists in the end. I fucking love Batty G. Someone sign this guy now, please. Please. God.
For TL, are they in the same situation as what we were talking about with Syyko before? Whereas, like, the cheese factor of putting a Neon in there and a double flash of KO and Sky, was that figured out when they were playing against FPX here?
I don't think that's... I don't think so. I wouldn't say that their Neon's actually a cheese factor. I think the way they use Neons were really, really good. They take a lot of space with it early. Those stuns are constantly used to initiate on A-long control and just making it really fucking hard to get any sort of early round control against these guys without risking running into a setup that's going to get you fucked up if they're pushing it on the other side. I don't think they necessarily got figured out. I think that for Team Liquid coming into this series, it was a little bit of an unknown for them. I imagine that first map maybe was a bit of a curveball for them because they came in and I'm pretty certain they wanted to catch FPX off guard, take out the Ascent and really run wild. And instead, this was evidently a map that FPX wanted to play. Maybe they would have picked it coming into today because they looked, or into that day, because it looked really, really, really good on it. And with a stand-in, I find it so hard to imagine removing Angel and putting anybody else in and having as good of a performance, or this good of a performance for a team like Team Liquid. Hell, if this was a BBL, if this was a guild even, I'd have excuses coming out the wazoo for why FPX, got lucky here or whatever. But Jesus, man, I don't know what to tell you. This is, again, one of the best teams in the world who've been performing pretty well this season. It's not like Liquid have come in and just looked fucking lost. They know how to play the game. That came up against a team that, I mean, look, let's have a look through FBX's games, right? They've beaten Team Liquid and then went on to lose to London United. They beat Gambit 2-1, Big 2-1, and then the Big 2-1 game, it's not really amazing. For them to come in and beat Liquid like this was completely out of left field. Completely.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll probably gloss over that game. I don't know how in detail we'll sort of need to go into that one a little bit later on, but I think it's pretty impressive to see what FPX are able to do without their mastermind. I think everyone was really shocked to see a team minus, especially when you look at Acend, and obviously the change that they had to make. Obviously Zeek integral to that team, but maybe not necessarily like, you know, a fucking Charles Xavier figure like Angel was, right?
Yeah.
Let's what we're not talked about here, we need to talk about Guild versus Supermassive Blaze, because obviously, you know, when we're not hot on Turkish rosters right now. It seems like they haven't really impressed us, even though BBL have been able to get up to some shenanigans, but that's a little bit of a different story. What's your takeaway here, though? Because Icebox is very, very close. Are we starting to see an improvement from, you know, these rosters getting to play up against the rest of EMEA? Like, what's the take on this series being as close as it was?
I guess it's possible for SMB. I think these guys will be going back to the drawing board on a lot of stuff based on what they've seen in VCT so far.
Yeah.
But again, this is a guild that looked a little bit shaky. Their first map was what, it was 13-10, yeah, and then 13.
I mean, the Breeze was 13-1. Yeah. I just put that down to them not being like remotely practiced on this map. But why Supermassive Blaze are banning Fracture and then getting fucked on Breeze? It's like they've not been able to adopt any of these newer maps. Like what's going on?
Well, I'll tell you, the only round they won on Breeze, even, it was a 13-1, but it was round 3. It was the round where they had rifles and their opponents had pistol. Oh, well, a few SMGs.
Yeah, they were bonusing.
So
yeah.
they managed to fuck the bonus up pretty well, but at that point, that was all they got. Yeah, I'm really not sure what SMB's thought process is here, leaving Breeze open against Guild. If this is how bad their Breeze is, I guess they really must hate their Fracture, because they looked lost. They didn't look like they had a clue what was going on there. When it came to the third map, though, yeah, 1917, OT after OT after OT. In a way, it was kind of depressing because we knew SMB at this point were already out. You know, like, this was a team that wasn't making playoffs and that was 99% going to relegation. And I only say 99 because I don't think the system has been kind of confusing. We don't want to say, oh, they're definitely there, you know, and then they end up, some weird rule stuff happens and they've made it out. But their SMB didn't really have a lot of stakes coming into this. But the caveat I was making going into it was that this is a team that wants to learn, right? Like, they're going to treat this as one of their last opportunities before relegation to learn against the best teams, and therefore their best chance of continuing to stay in VCT or to make it back into VCT was to do well in this game and to learn as much as they possibly could and test everything. And I think that they definitely came in with a fire lit under them. I don't want to say that Guild didn't. I just think that Guild haven't got the reps in, really. It's also a bit of a ludicrous team. When I look at the players that are on it, like someone like Safe, he's crazy. He's very, very hard to control. And so with Cold Amanda taking the reins on that one, I imagine it's a tough task, honestly, to lead that team. But the reason I say reps is because I look at that roster and I believe in every single player on it. I really and truly do. My boy Cold Amanda from all the way back in Battalion, I've loved this guy, and we've seen what he can do at the tier 1 level. I don't want to count Guild out of next season, but for this, they're too inconsistent, way too inconsistent for to have any faith in them.
Yeah, it's a little bit shaky, and the way they struggled with G2, I think, was probably concerning people because their issues were of a fundamental nature, not necessarily of like a fine-tuning execution. It was just them dealing with the pace that G2 were bringing. They weren't able to. So, yeah, I wonder how the cohesion is with that roster, if that's sort of where they struggle. I want to talk about, I wonder just to what degree we can explain away this next result on sort of external factors, because Fnatic go up against Acend. This is expected to, I think, be pretty competitive, right? Not knowing what we know about maybe sort of, you know, the Zeek not traveling nearly as well as, you know, it might seem. But, I mean, Acend on Haven here, there's not much to really say about this. I think Acend win, like, they beat Fnatic on their bonus round. They win the pistol in the second half. but they look really flat, really lifeless.
I think coming into this series, I agree with you 100% in that we expected a very, very tight one. And I don't necessarily think that Acend can lean back on any of the stuff with Zeek at this stage. When it came to Haven, Fnatic had an absolutely insane amount of control, and I think that there was a massive lack when it came to Acend, excuse me. Ascent being the next map, so this won't get confusing at all. But when it comes to Acend, one thing that I'm gonna look at again and again to deliver is someone like, first of all, Bone Cold on a smoker, you know, on your, I don't know, Brimstone, maybe, this day and age. It's certainly coming into new meta, I imagine. But Killez being on an Astra was not something I've ever necessarily been able to get behind. It's not an agent that he has a ton of reps in. I think it's a very, very new thing that we're seeing coming out. And, well, maybe an old thing fairly soon, because I don't see the logic of taking this guy off a duelist. He's too damn strong, and I think the role can be filled up a lot better by having Bone Cold maintain his smokes. I think new Brim is going to be seen from him pretty much every single day. Killez will go back to a duelist, and they'll look a lot better. Maybe this is a team kind of caught in limbo right now. I don't know. Why would you play Killjoy Bone Cold then? It was a confusing one, Haven. And they got 13 forward for it. So yeah, we had concerns coming in, and rightfully so, I guess.
These are still important games. Like, these aren't just like, oh, well, you know, we'll goof around because it's not that important. Like, Acend are now 2-3 after this week. They are, I mean, they're locked for not qualifying, right? Yeah, they're in 9th, 10th. Yeah.
They'll be here next season, but they are not going to playoffs. And it is because of, funnily enough, both of these games. So Fnatic are leading the group right now. They're, you know, it is an acceptable loss. Let's make that very clear. But the BBL game is what eliminated them. And, you know, pinch of salt with Zeek not being there and so on, but BBL are not a team that should be eliminating Acend. This is a world champion. You know, you cannot be getting hard done, but we know there's a lot of external factors there, and I don't know to what extent they're affecting them, but based on those results, be a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's obviously it's sad to see them go out this way, but again, at least they'll be there next season as well, a chance to sort of make up for what happened. So Group A, still we have 4 games that need to be played. Obviously, 3 of those were involving M3C right now, so we should hopefully sort of see them fairly soon. Obviously, this will cause the schedule to be pushed out a little bit. Let's talk about Navi going up against Big, if you want, because obviously, you know, like Navi, we know we're sort of fighting still for that legitimacy with a lot of really big teams from that CIS region. They're still looking, you know, to sort of make their name. Obviously, they're Navi because the org is sort of divested from any sort of Russian ownership. They obviously have Russian players on their team and a Belarusian, but, you know, like, what's your take on this series, I guess, sort of overall? Because it does definitely seem like a couple teams that are maybe not at tier 1 right now in Europe, definitely going at it tooth and claw.
Yeah. Well, Navi are... You've got JD, Dinks J, SSK, Cloud, Dano, like literally all 5 of them tier 1 players. So seeing Navi assembled in the first place, the iteration of the roster with Arch was certainly something everybody got very excited with. And I think you take Arch out of the roster, I was worried. But they haven't really had struggles. If anything, I think Navi have looked a lot better in recent memory. Someone like Cloud has... I'm trying to think of a comparison in EMEA, and I really can't. He's almost like the CNED of Sovas to me. In that, like, his numbers are just stupid. I switched to the Ascent game that they finished on, and yeah, so it's just stupid. So SSK, he's playing the Jet. Jets on this map, for those that don't know, attack side is going to be pretty difficult. You gotta be kind of dashing in. You're dying a lot. He was 18 to 15. Pretty good. SSK, Fortnite kid, you know, was brought in here day 1 of Valorant, and he's putting up numbers. Cloud was on Sova, and he went 21 and 11, 9 assists, 2 out of 5 opening duels, not bad. Like 160 ADR as a Sova, and it's consistent. This guy, the most fucked up thing was not his aim. It wasn't his you know, his recons or anything like that. No. This guy killed more people that he couldn't see than he saw on Ascent. he was shock darting. He shock darted someone on the CT side of heaven. Now, I mean like the CT side. I mean like where the fucking steps are going down into CT spawn in a sense. He shock darted someone there. Like before they even pushed the site. He was an attacker and he's just firing them up, taking them down. It was like there shouldn't be anyone standing there. How do you know? How? What is this shit? And he was Hunter's Furying through walls. I hate. All right, the first thing, anytime we hear a very start of the round, you hear like, I am the Hunter. Tom's like, all right, Mitch, go on. Because I hate early round Hunter's Furies. I fucking hate them because they're always a waste. 9 times out of 10, they're a waste. But this guy, he did it every time he could, and he was just hitting everyone. He's just getting like 2 kills with a Hunter's Fury. He's actually crazy. I've never seen someone as consistent with utility, including Jonas. So a player I'm super excited about, and I thought it would be Things J. Sentinel Lurk, incredible player. JD, one of the most talented individual players we had for a while, and another victim of NIP. And SSK, another guy. I mean, look, he stole all our hearts when I think it was Angel was playing with him, right? Party Pirates back in the day. So yeah, Party Pirates. Yeah, this is a roster that I never thought Cloud would be the one that I was most impressed by. But right now, yeah, he's the star player for me just because he plays the game unlike anyone else does.
So Navi is still I think they qualify, right? Or well, there's still 5 games to be played, but they're in a pretty good spot, I want to say.
Their group is very, very hotly contested though, because obviously you've got M3 champs who have only got 2 games done at the moment, so they're sat down in 5th, but really they're 1-1, so they can go anywhere. They could still technically top the board. Have they played FPX yet? They haven't. They lost. Okay, so they couldn't top the board, but they could come second, so that's better.
So the only thing that stands in Navi's way, theoretically, is I mean, London United beat FPX. Obviously, this was a team without Angel, right? But we saw that they, without Angel, can still do a whole lot. But as time drew on, I guess this was not really the case. This was generally a very competitive series. Fracture, a bit of an anomaly there. London United looked extremely flat, but this team still looking very good. Fekyu, obviously, still very dangerous. Very, very impressive stuff from him over the course of the series. He looked really good on Haven, especially. But what's your take on this one here? Obviously tough for FPX to lose it, but we kind of know why.
Yeah. Look, the fact that they beat Liquid, like it's really hard to gauge where this team is at. I guess though as well, it's a different day you're coming into. Maybe with the team like London United are a team that have been complimented again and again for being an incredibly strategic team. This is and I mean that's almost a cop-out phrase, like, oh, they play a strategic game. So you're saying they're not fucking idiots. Okay, cool. Like I would hope a professional team plays a strategic game. But London United, for me, that they are actually one of the most structured teams that we have. They said that coming into things, and I said that was very arrogant of them to say in their interview, which I thought it was, but it did actually follow through. This team doesn't just come into the map and try to outduel you or do any of that sort of shit, and they can. Someone like Malsey has shown again and again that he's a player capable of putting up numbers, but the guy that you highlighted, Fekyu, surprisingly not having the numbers on London United that you would expect for the role that he plays, for being a Jet, for being Fekyu, someone who's had a lot of hype. I think more so around the beta, but certainly a player that's had a lot of eyes on him in EMEA. But he's not really the one that tends to be like dominating. He's not a CNET or anything like that. And I'm all right with that 100%, because these guys will play slow, they'll play methodical, and they'll ensure that, yeah, you might be able to beat them on duels like the likes of Team Liquid. You come in, you've got your scream, sure, just go out, just wreck these guys. But London United, they combat that pretty well by sticking together, by focusing on the fundamentals, and by trying to beat you in having that second guy there to trade, in having their utility perfectly set up as they move through. The Liquid game that they had, it was like, look, they didn't come close to winning it, for example. It was Haven 13-8 loss, Split 13-10 loss. But for a team like London United, who are newcomers to the top tier of this scene, that's fucking sick. To have that level of progression already where you're actually making one of the best teams in the world sweat. They come up against FPX here. They actually win. now I'm starting to think, okay, you know, maybe you guys are a team for the future. Maybe they're even a team for playoffs. Like I said, it's still very possible for them to make it there. And if they do, maybe they can upset a couple of teams. But for me now, again, you don't have Angel here. So I just don't know how that affects FPX overall. It's such a key piece to take out. It's funny, I always used to say, we used to come on here and say NA in shambles. But then I look at this. Every game in EU has got a caveat right now. So I guess I guess we're in shambles.
I was always still wondering, like, even like as much as I am about this copium of how good C9 and version 1 look, like how would it look against like Fnatic right now, which again,
sure,
Bozer looks fucking amazing as a breach. How would they do against Liquid? And I guess the answer is just totally fine.
Well, we'll see about, because Fnatic look really good right now. I
They
don't
look
think
really
that will
good.
be
I'm not gonna
pushover.
lie. I'm not gonna lie.
But,
yeah.
but here's the thing, and I'm gonna ask a genuine question here. What happens if Russian players make it to Masters? Because I right now things can change on a daily basis, and that's the fear for me. I think everybody, at least the majority of our top teams, have got Russian players in them. So for a combination of, like, I know I've heard, well, Gambit or M3 champions as they are now, these guys, well, they probably have visas, probably. I don't know the likelihood of that. I don't know how the Icelandic visas work, but they might have visas from last year. Because obviously I imagine it's pretty hard to get in touch with an embassy as a Russian right now and go anywhere. But even if they do, can they get to Iceland? Will they be allowed in? I know a lot of countries are literally saying we will not allow Russian nationals into the country, period. I know a friend who couldn't go to the place that she wanted to emigrate to because her husband is Russian and she's from Kiev. So there's nowhere they can really go. The problem for me is Fnatic look great, and I have no doubt that they could challenge the top NA team. What if Brave Af doesn't go? What if he's not able to go at the last minute and they have to get a last minute stand in? I mean, that's why these guys have signed Autumn as a sub. He sat there for this exact purpose. It's not a reality that, I mean, unfortunately, it's not a reality that is unlikely or is theoretical. This is real right now. And I think, you know, the likes of Fnatic, the likes of FPX with having Angel, having Shao and Sagetsu, then Team Liquid will be fine. Navi, fucked. So like a lot of our top teams, M3 champions obviously, can be hard fucked by something that's out of our control. So even when it comes to assessing these games, it's tough. And when it comes to assessing their overall meaning and standing, it's like, well, if things remain exactly as they are, I don't know. What does it mean for FPX losing or winning without Angel? I don't know. But then they might need to win or lose at Masters without him or without half their fucking team. And it's a really confusing time.
If to make it a little bit lighter too, though, if FPX make it and they do need an IGL, there is Sean Gares that's currently available.
There we go.
Dude,
there we go.
And I would fucking mold if Sean went to EU. Like, they would lose their minds. Here's the thing. You guys got fucking, he's got a wife and kid. What, you think he's going to just uproot everybody and what, go live in Berlin for a bit? Like, sorry, that's not going to happen. Come on. Let's be real. No one's doing that.
Hey, if it's for Sean Gares, we can move the team to North America, right? Make it happen.
We talked a bunch about EU and NA. We haven't talked about VRL. And of course, we have on board our special VRL correspondent, Ian, to give us the lowdown on what's been going on across all of our VRL regions this week. I know you'll enjoy this.
Hi, my name is Ian St. Lawrence. I'm the executive producer of VALORANTing, and this is VRL Vlog. First off, we've got VRL Spain. Now, you'll remember that Giants are in top and Heretics way at the bottom. And guess what? Heretics had to go through the demotion tournament. And woo, they made it through. But if they had lost, they would have been in a Tier 3 tournament produced by a 13-year-old. Luckily, they avoided that fate. And we've got the playoffs coming for the VCT promotion tournament going into that starting March 15th for Spain. Moving on, we have VRL Turkey. Now again, Surreal Esports, Fireflux, Footballists, those top three, Surreal and Fireflux getting buys into their playoff tournament. Very good for them. And the other teams are going to have to battle it out in those quarterfinals to try and get through. Now again, whoever wins this is going into the VCT promotion tournament. This is again, March 15th, this starts. Then we have VRL France. Haven't talked about these guys before. Sector 1, OG Esports, BDS Vitality, BGenius. BGenius has a stand-in, and you might recognize him. Their stand-in is David P. from G2 Esports and Excel, and they are looking to finish out the regular season by winning their matches, Vitality losing their matches, and BGenius might upset and make it into the playoffs. We will have to see. Then we have VRL Northern Europe. We've got Alliance, we've got Excel, we've got 10-Star, we've got Tundra, we've got H2O who are 0-7, and their reward, not having a Liquipedia page. That's rough. That's a sweet kind of death. With the playoffs starting March 18th, we're going to have Alliance versus Tundra. We're going to have Excel versus 10-Star. And if Alliance wins the whole thing, we will reward MitchMan with the thing that he wants most. It's consistent rulings from Riot. So if Alliance wins, we'll be putting pressure on them. This has been the Grim Reaper. That's me talking about relegation, all these dead teams. Will we ever see them again? Probably not. They're in tier 3 hell. But you know what's not hell? You know what's actually a good time? Valoranting. Tuesdays, 11 a.m. PST. You'll love to see it. Check it out.
Thank you very much, Ian. Yeah, good to hear about what's going on in our VRL regions. I don't know how we managed to get the Grim Reaper on the show. Thought he'd be
That's
too
a good
busy
way to
just
wake me up.
destroying
That was
washed up European teams, but here we are. Okay, let's talk about something a little bit serious. Angel obviously isn't getting paid by FPX, or at least he wasn't getting paid. Mitch, give us the skinny on this.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation. You have a fucking war breaking out, and FPX, I guess, they're based in China, right? So they're a little bit far away, maybe a little bit disconnected from the whole situation. They turned around and said, "Yeah, okay, Angel, you know, we've given you a couple days now, buddy. You know, he hasn't been turning up to prac for some reason." So they said, "Yeah, March 15th, we'll pay you till then, and if you don't play after that, fuck off. We're not paying you until you play again." So, you know, pretty understanding of the, you know, it's not like there's a war going on in his backyard or anything. So he's out of Kiev now. He's safe, but the threat was that he wasn't going to make any money. So that's pretty cool. Pretty
They
nice
were
of them.
refusing. They were refusing to pay him because I guess he couldn't play because he was currently fleeing persecution and death.
Breaching his contract. How fucking dare he? You know what? Next time someone starts artillery shelling your fucking apartment, how about you check your contract before you go running away to safety? Like what the fuck are FPX thinking?
Who the fuck owns this organization? It's a Chinese organization, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. As far as I know.
Yeah, sorry. I guess the Chinese manager must be like, I don't know why he's fleeing from this special military operation that's just designed to liberate the people of the Donbass region. Why would we pay him for running away from this?
You're telling me you're liberated now and you can't come to practice? Why? Like, what? You're free.
If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell for the future noties, but also comment below with what you'd like to see in our future shows.
Anyway, where were we? He got paid, right? They got him fucking paid. I guess Jerome is from Prodigy, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously a very player-centric agency.
Yep.
And I guess they just put pressure on them. It's crazy what public pressure can do for you, isn't it? So as far as you know, Angel's getting paid now, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
he will receive his salary on the good faith agreement, I suppose, that he's probably not able to work as opposed to avoiding work. As far
know.
as I know, this isn't all a cover-up for Angel to have a weekend bender. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
as
Angel's
far
just
as I
putting
know.
his feet up in the Caymans through all this. Unreal. All right. Well,
Chilling with
okay, so-
Tupac.
Look, I'm sure he can get back to playing at some point. Like, even if he's not in a position to return to his home country. But like, sorry, like, I don't really. It is very callous, this behavior. And it, like, if it comes from someone who hails from China, because this is a Chinese organization and maybe the money decisions come from them, then shame on you guys. Not only are they fucking denying that there is a war happening at all, just like there is no war in Ba Sing Se. Not only is that happening, but they're also just trying to prevent players from getting paid. Like this is so fucking weird and cringe. And stop doing that. Oh my god. Oh, all right. Keznit
It's just
got into a little bit of
esports.
Keznit got into a little bit of a snafu, didn't he? Obviously from crew fame. Basically, Keznit got suspended before one of the biggest matches for them before the LATAM playoffs.
Mhm.
Crew said that they would abide by the ruling, and they're gonna be playing without Keznit. What the fuck happened here, Vance?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Apparently, somebody called Keznit McDonald's. Yeah. So then Keznit got angry, and then I guess he got mocked into looking like a caricature of a chicken as well. So then, what happened too is that he compared that person to a caricature as well. But then it kind of got offhand because I think maybe he could have crossed the line of how he compared this person to that character. So it went back and forth where he got punished by Crew at first. And then I'm pretty sure that Crew said, okay, we're all good in our sense. But then Riot said, no. Despite this being like a racist comment whatsoever or whatever happened in the end, he's still going to get punished. So that's.
So Keznit, though, compared someone to a character of color from Grand Theft Auto, right?
Yes.
The guy in the "oh shit, here we go again" meme,
the
right?
rumor, the rumor is that. The rumor is when I looked at the Reddit comments, was like compared him as the CJ of Valorant, which I don't know what that means.
I don't know. It's also like this is all happening in a different language, so you've really got to take everything with a pinch of salt in terms of like, because what we're essentially discussing is, was the intention behind what this guy said. I'm a Keznit, who I've met, lovely dude. That he was he trying to abuse this man based on his race, or was it just a kind of throwaway comment? I think getting that context from something in a different language that's been translated is very, very, very tough.
Listen,
very tough.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'll be honest. So it's complicated, and the reason why I say this is because humor in that part of the world is a little different to sort of how it is for us. Like, for example, and I know these aren't this. I know Keznit isn't Brazilian, right? I know there's a difference, but in Brazil, a very common pejorative is alemão, right? Which is a nickname that many Brazilian players have taken on. And it derives from Alemania, I think, which is Germany, like German white guy, white looking guy. And they say it in like a derogatory sense, right? That some people from Brazil are paler in complexion, right?
Sure.
And we had a play like that in the Overwatch League. I think there's a play like that in League of Legends as well, who are Brazilian. And the way they explained it was like, yeah, it's just a joke, really. Like obviously I'm kind of paler of skin than a lot of my sort of, my contemporaries in Brazil, and they make fun of me for that. And it's my nickname as well. So it's like, whatever. So, so Crew obviously disagree, but will comply. Also, Leviathan, which is the team that Crew are going to be playing against, also sort of said that both parties probably should have been called McDonald's. That is just banter as far as I'm concerned, but apparently there's more to it than that, right? So
sure. The thing that doesn't really make sense to me though is that, as far as I understand, Keznit was punished, and his punishment was because what he said initially was deemed to be racist. But that punishment is now not. Sorry, that statement is now, as far as I understand, by Riot deemed to not be racist.
Yeah.
So now what we have, if I'm not mistaken, is two people who have each insulted each other's opinion, and one is being punished and one is not. Why? How does that make sense? Maybe there is more to the story, but if that's it, if that's where things end, that's up. It comes back to what we talked about earlier, which is Riot's enforcement of rules across regions being ridiculous. In this case, yes, we have two people doing the same thing, one being punished and one not. Very, I don't know, man. It's very weird.
Right. Yeah. Even like Crew's opponents are like, yeah, we don't really know why this guy should be punished to be not able
Seems
to
like
play
no
our
one
game.
cares.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Riot are like, no, but you're banned for being racist, except you weren't racist, which we now know, but fuck you, you're banned anyways.
Apparently,
we thought you were, what?
Yeah.
I've heard this as well. This is brought up in chat. I don't know if this is really useful at all, but I've heard that Keznit has been who's towed the line before pretty narrowly
Really?
in terms of
Okay.
some of his, yeah, back during his Counter-Strike days, I think. So,
If there's a history there, that certainly changes things then.
yeah, but again,
Sure.
like it's hearsay, right? Like I don't really want to just. I mean, we are Valoranting and we are kind of TMZ at times, but I don't really want to fuel the
Yeah.
fire with something that's not substantiated.
We're all
But
fucking McDonald's.
I would say, take it with a grain of salt, but weigh that up as part of this conversation as well. News about Trippy, obviously, longtime friend of the show, someone who we brought on before, talked about his coaching with FaZe Clan, is striking out on his own. He left FaZe Clan. Obviously, that team's gone under a lot of changes, and JDM also joined as coaching staff. And Trippy sort of makes a tweet along where he says, had a great time at FaZe, and he's been thinking about where he wants to be in the grand scheme of things, and that is a player. So Coach Trippy has decided that he wants to go and try and become a pro player. LFT is an IGL in North America, no less. So, okay, I'm sure a lot of teams are like, okay, fair enough. And he wants to play controller Sentinels initiators. So, I mean, wow, he's not a Jet One trick. He wants to IGL. I mean, he's a unicorn in North America.
Yeah.
Big respect for anybody that makes that kind of leap. That is a big risk, especially because he's going from a coaching position where he has, guaranteed income that he could have just sat with, and now he's not even jumping to a team. If he was jumping to a playing position immediately, that would still be a big leap. But when someone does something like this, it tells me that this is what they want more than anything. This is this is the kind of player you can invest in because they're willing to take that risk on themselves. I love that.
Yeah.
Shit.
And he streams a lot too, man. I think he puts a lot of his gameplay out there. He has a great mental fortitude as well. I tweeted it out at the same time. Like his streams are super chill, and he does have, as a coach, even that winning mentality. So I think you're putting all of that together. Great IG. Oh well, probably has the experience to be a great IGL and has the skills to back it up. I think that'll be a great addition to potentially FPX if they make it to Masters and they still need an IGL.
We got
okay.
Sean, we got Trippy.
That's-
You're really trying to get the NA teams in EMEA.
Yeah,
huh?
I know. I think
I mean,
this is
piggyback off
realizing
our
that NA is
success?
fucked, right?
We
He's
got
trying to get
Ryan,
his
so we
homies-
got to trade it out.
trying to
you
get his
know?
homies out of the region. It's a sinking ship, and he's trying to throw him a life vest. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Hey, we have an NA player in the finals of champs, guys. Yeah, we did it.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Gambit because they are going to be playing in VCT EMEA this upcoming week. We kind of talked about it as well. They're going to be competing as M3C, Masters 3 champions. So Gambit says, it's tough being Russian these days. Everybody doesn't like us. But obviously, on a serious note, they're saying, they're recognizing that those in Ukraine are really suffering, and they still want their players to be able to compete. And they'll be playing under another name, which is what is mandated. So obviously, there are still 3 games I think for this roster to play, and they're big ones because right now, what are they, like 1-1 so far in their group? So a lot to be decided. So we still need to see this team play against Navi Big, and I mean they're fine. They're playing against Navi Big and London United, so probably looking pretty safe here. But look, nice to see the team allow this. I mean, we've seen. Was it Gambit that was like getting angry about this, calling it witch hunting? No, I think it was VP. I think
Yeah, I think VP were a bit more vocal
VP.
about that. But Gambit, I think, made the same call for their ESL Pro League team not that long ago, maybe last week. Same thing, where they said, these guys, they're not going to be allowed to play under Gambit. We think that's kind of, that sucks, but we're not going to punish our players for it. So they let them through. So they seem to be handling it really, really well. And to be fair, Gambit have always been, look at the jackets they give their players. These guys have always been pretty fucking good from what I've heard, at least from a player side.
Team's got a proud legacy in the region. I mean, they were Moscow 5, and they, obviously transitioning to Gambit, but in every esport, they've been a pretty big deal. Obviously, the concern is like where the backing of this company comes from and what individuals are involved. So I think that divestment to allow the players to play is really important. Who knows how that develops, right? I love that they want to name themselves Masters 3 champions just to fucking let everyone know. You know what I mean? I guess, hey, if you can't have a name that has such legacy as Gambit, then something that very clearly explains where you've been before is also fine. Moving along, we also talked a little bit about this, but we can delve into it a little bit more. That Zeek is obviously taking a break from Acend. He sort of tweets this in a tweet longer and says he's been suffering with some mental challenges, and he kind of just couldn't handle it anymore. And obviously, it takes a lot of courage, I think, to not only express this to your team and your teammates, but also publicly. So, I mean, I want to commend Zeke for doing this. As someone who, on a personal note, it's not about me, but I've also felt like I've really run into a brick wall myself the last, week or so, mentally and physically, and it's really hard to admit that. And even more so with Zeke, because he carries this expectation, I think, from so many fans of Acend, teammates, and really hard to lift that burden up and put it down. So, a lot of respect for someone that can do this. And Acend, thankfully, Mitch were really supportive of this as well.
Yeah, really good of the team and the both the players and the staff to empower them in that way. I know that Acend, I've been on their podcast and everything, sat with the owners. I know that they're a very, very family orientated kind of org. Like, they would definitely take anything like this extremely seriously, as every org should. And I think that it's a great call by them to allow them to step back, because look, you've got one team. Let's summarize it like this: you've got one team whose player is fleeing in the midst of a fucking war, and they're like, okay, if you can play in the next week, we'll keep paying you. And then the other team who's like, you're having mental health issues, no problem, take a step back. And that's one of those teams has the right approach, and it ain't FBX.
Yeah. So, bear in mind, I think are Gambit called outsiders though in the ESL Pro League? Oh no, sorry, we've moved on. Yeah, obviously, I think that this team did really well to be able to find that success without Zeke, obviously, and it's tough for them. They're not going to be qualifying, but I think there are plenty of reasons outside of what Zeke suffered for this team to sort of be in this position. So if I'm Zeke, I'm trying not to put it all on me that you failed to make it into playoffs. I think Ascender in a bit of transitional period at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Vansilli. Vansilli has been able to remove his mouth suckling from the Riot teat for a short time, and we'll be casting a big Mickey Meow tournament coming up on the Masters 16th. Vans, tell us about it.
Yeah, actually, it's going on live in 15 minutes for day 2. So it's the Boom TV Proving Grounds 20K. So tomorrow I'll be casting with DDK. So we're going to be doing the semifinals and finals of some cool teams that are actually participating. Because what's cool about it is we have 100 Thieves that's playing. Then we have a crew that also has a new fifth going into trial, which I think is Zachary. FaZe also is in that event, where there's Poach that recently replaced Larry Banks. So there's a couple of teams coming in here, and Gen G that has Will, by the way, that replace or that's trying out instead of Kusta. So there's a lot of these tier 2 teams. Fuck, am I even calling 100 Thieves tier 2 now? I guess so. Participating in these tournaments where we want to see their improvement and see the new tryouts and see how it's going to pan out. So that's actually live in 15 minutes for day 2, and I'm looking forward to do the grand finals tomorrow.
That gig.
Thanks, man. How's my camera back in 4K? And then Mitch is still pixelated.
I don't know. I think it's one of you gets fucked. I think there's like a total amount of bandwidth, and I get prioritized because I'm the host, and I don't have anything to say. I have to look good. You guys, though, it's like
taking all the bandwidth. It's all mine.
Yeah,
it's all mine.
You can't have it back now. You can't. I need it. Otherwise, I look like a fucking shambles.
That's true, Typho. It is 5 a.m. for me, I think, that I have to cast tomorrow, but it's all good.
Yeah, you poor bastard. Yeah, okay. Good. Well, I mean, this is what Vansilli, mate, doesn't fuck around. Even though he's finally getting a chance to see his wife, he's neglecting her in order to cast. So yeah, take from that what you will.
She must love you, man. Sorry for the last 2.5 years. I gotta go cast this Boom TV. Let's go. By the way, I'm gonna be up till 3 a.m. tonight.
I have to cast it, but I have to cast it in the middle of your fucking house. So yeah.
Well, you're
in the middle of the night, I guess, right? Gotta be like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Woo!
I don't even know how.
What do they say? What do they say? Troy Oi.
What
do they say? Yeah, Troy Oi.
That's why Vans gave her like 2.5 years. Give it a little bit of space. Let her just chill out, and it's like, all right,
welcome to my world.
Oh dear. All right. Obviously on tomorrow, on Wednesday, that is tomorrow. I'm shipping out again to Arizona, so we will have the breakdown. I'm sure I'm going to do a reprise of my fucking Riot rant that I did today. I'm quite sure they'll find something for us to talk about. But yeah, breakdown, me and Sir Scoots, 12 p.m. Pacific, also 12 p.m. Mountain Time, as it turns out. There's no time difference now. But yeah, if you missed last week, we had some very interesting discussions, and I'm sure we'll have more today. We're going to talk about a bunch of what's been going on the last week or so. And yeah, I think Sean Gares will definitely feature in that one. Good show, guys. 2 hours, 45 minutes, by the way. Yeah, nice one. I take the blame this time. I got on the soapbox.
It's a good topic.
I got on the soapbox. Promise I won't do it until Riot fuck up again, which could be tomorrow. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. Don't forget, we still have the tail end of the VCT EMEA to see, and then playoffs are starting. Oh, really quick. Do we want to? I mean, you don't have to, Mitch, but Vans, do you want to give your predictions of who's going to make it through playoffs here for NA? Who do you think?
Cloud9 first.
Yep.
Version 1 second.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty safe. They're on opposite sides of the bracket. I think that like Optic versus C9 again could be fun. That could be like a semi-final rematch if XSET don't win that one. It's going to be exciting. That's kicking off, I think, on the 17th of March. So yeah, 2 days time that's happening. So NA is going to charge forward. So we'll be having to recap all of that next week. So
sometime 4 a.m. my time in the next few days. It starts.
Where am I going? Priest, I'll be in Phoenix for the day. That's where the Do Not Pick studio will be. Anyway, big shout out to Syyko. We're really lucky to have Don come on the show and help us break down some of what was going on in NA. The guy is Gigabrain, and we're really lucky to have him share that stuff with us. So shout out to you. And of course, thank you everybody for joining us here on the show and listening to me get really fucking angry. Hope no one took it personally, except for the people that are meant to take it personally, which is you, Riot. We'll see you guys next week, of course, for more breakdown. 11 a.m. PT. Until then, enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, of course. We'll see you soon.